We are live. All right, recording is back in business. Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Good to see all your faces. All right, we will officially call this meeting to order with a roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton here.
Corey Evans here.
Jean Haley-Dippold here.
Diane Kennedy here.
And Carrie Thompson here. All right, I will briefly read our Zoom information, and then we have a special guest for our Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and Cohasset's Facebook page. The public is invited to participate on the Zoom platform, which can be accessed using the link provided at the top of the posted agenda for tonight's meeting. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by me. Board members will be able to ask questions of any participant. All votes taken at this meeting will be by roll call vote. Members of the public who wish to ask questions are asked to raise their virtual hand on Zoom, and at my discretion, I will promote you into the meeting, and you will need to provide your first name and address for our record. Please note that comments on platforms other than this Zoom meeting will not be monitored, and this meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143 TV and our Facebook page. All right, moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a special guest here tonight, Mateo from Safe Harbor. I'm going to introduce you to him. Say hi, Mateo.
Hello.
And
Hi,
he is
Mateo.
going to stand by the flag, and we will rise for him to lead us in the pledge. Go ahead, right up there.
I pledge allegiance
To
to
the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. All right. And Mateo has one quick thing to say about Safe Harbor and all the things they are doing this summer, which is really important. So go ahead, Mateo. I know you have a quick update.
Okay, here are our Safe Harbor updates. First, we have preparing for year 4 of Youth Ambassadors, which is our 4th year. We have registration for grades 7 to 12, which is open on safeharborcohasset.org website. And we also have annual mandatory training, which will be held on either August 27th or 28th. And another event we have is National Recovery Month, which is going to be in September, which is where Safe Harbor, Paul Pratt Memorial Library, and South Shore Art Center partners for the month-long series for Upward Spiral. And this year we'll highlight exhibit will be on September 16th from 6:30 to 8 at the library, and will be interactive, focusing on the artistry of the written word. We hope you leave this exhibit with renewed hope, information, and compassion.
Thank you, Mateo.
Great job.
That
Thank
was
you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Yes, applause for Mateo. Good job.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Well done.
Nicole
done.
and Mateo and everyone at Safe Harbor. That was wonderful. All right, moving on to public comment. I am looking right now to see if I see anyone in the crowd with a hand raised. I do not see anyone as of now, so I'll keep my eye out for that. All right. We have to begin with a very important announcement. I know this news has been floating around the town and on Facebook, but some of you may have heard, some of you may not have heard, that our town clerk, Carol, has announced her retirement. And we now as a board need to make an interim appointment because this is a very important position and it's also an elected position. And I want to thank Carol for all her years of service and also just tee up this conversation with both Miriam and Chris. I will say I've spoken to council. I spoke with Rod Hoffman, our council, with Durensis' office today. We think that we have everything figured out for how to do this properly and fairly within the town. So we have spoken to council about it, but it is a big deal. This is a very important position. Our elections are sacred, as all of us know, and it's a very important position. So I'm going to pass this over to Miriam and Chris to give a quick update on what we're planning to do with this.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Let me just start. And again, I echo my thanks to Carol. Now, Carol's still here. So her retirement won't be until the end of the quarter. but it's going to take some time to find an interim replacement. So we really want to do this right and give the board time. So that as Carrie points out, it is an elected position. That said, council's pointed out that under state law, this board can make an interim appointment of anyone, including a non-resident. And at this point, our recommendation would be that you authorize us to do a search for an interim, kind of either a retired clerk or someone who's done this before that can just kind of plug in as you and the community considers what you want to do next. We'd post, we'd obviously have Carol in the middle of that process, and I'll have Miriam talk more about that. And then the plan would be to have, if that's the path you want to go down, we'd have someone to recommend probably in August. And then the goal would be to have the board appoint somebody, if not late August, then perhaps in early September, so that we're, or again, depending on how Carol's departure sets up, she's willing to be flexible. So we do have a little time, but again, it's summer. It's going to be, it's going to be a time, and we want to make sure we got a good candidate to keep the office flowing. The good, there is no election here until spring. There are no local elections in the fall here, so we don't have another election process to next April or May, and then there'll be a town meeting, obviously, a special plan for the fall. So, the office has a lot to do, but at least there won't be an election to have to go through until next year.
Yeah, it is good timing for that reason that there won't be a fall election, I think. So we're lucky that it's timed that way. Miriam?
All right, good evening. I think that you all received an outline of the recruiting process that we're recommending. We would want to make this process as transparent as possible. So we're going to post the interim town clerk position on our website, as well as using social media. We would also post it on the Mass Municipal Association. And I understand there's an association just for town clerks. And so we would also post it there. We would do an internal screen of applicants, as we do for all open positions. And one of the questions, that we need to make sure is that they're available for the length of time that we need them, which is more than 6 months. And we would take a look at their qualifications and present to the select board available and qualified candidates for public interviews. The timeline we're looking at is, with your approval, we will post tomorrow. We would be looking at doing the first round of internal screening interviews, probably the first or second week of August. And then we would recommend candidates to the select board. Hopefully we would have some to recommend no later than August 16th. In doing that, we would then ask if the select board would want to interview sometime between the 16th and September 7th, since Carol's current projected date of retirement is the 3rd of September. But of course, those dates, as well as that schedule, is somewhat flexible in that we have to get candidates and go through that process.
Thank you, Miriam. And I will say, in thinking about this, we obviously want to be as fair as possible, as transparent as possible. And I think the goal here, and I want to open this up to the board after this comment, but we don't want to be seen as favoring someone or a potential candidate that's going to be running in this election. I do think there are people interested in running for this in the spring in town. I think it is probably going to be a contested race, and that's great. And those of you watching tonight, I hope you can ask someone to consider stepping up. It's a really important elected position, but we don't want to be seen as maybe favoring one of those candidates. And if we can find, in my opinion, an interim placeholder that is trustworthy and experienced in this role, that probably, in my opinion, is the most fair way to do it. But I do want to hear what all of you think. Another stipulation is that obviously, if you're running for this office, you have to be a resident of Cohasset. This placeholder actually doesn't need to be a resident, according to our council. So that does open up the pool for possible interim applicants to make it a little bit bigger. So they don't necessarily need to be a resident of Cohasset if we can find someone who's maybe been a clerk in another town or has some experience. So that is one other factor that we have to play with here. What does everyone think? I want to open it up to the board for discussion. I see Diane's hand first and then Jack.
I agree with everything you just said. I think that it probably, without biasing already what we're doing, I do think it's better to get somebody from the outside for the interim role and somebody that has some experience. And in a lot of these interim positions, it can be, a retired person. So I agree with what you said.
Okay, Jack, what do you think?
Well, first thing is replacing Carol is just impossible. This town has been so fortunate for so many years to have such a great town clerk. So we should have Town Clerk Day and name it after Carol. But that's for another thing. I think, yes, we should strongly favor people who are not going to be eligible, even if they live in the town and they say they're not going to run. After they've been in, they'll be asked and whatever. So I think that ought to be a very strong, and we do need somebody who can step in and do the job. So retired clerk who doesn't live in Cohasset, and then we just get rid of that whole potential conflict.
All right, it sounds like we're in agreement so far. Jean and Corey, what do you think about this? Any differing opinions? Jean, you unmuted yourself. I can't tell if, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just looking to raise my hand. Yeah, I agree with all that. I also would add on maybe an additional layer of someone we might want to strongly consider, not only ineligible, but just from a cost saving standpoint, someone who is already, someone we're already paying a salary to, who may be able to slot into that role on a temporary basis and then slot out, and then we'd have some salary savings there. Potentially, particularly where we don't have a town election necessarily in the interim, except for the one that elects the clerk. Right. And so, that is an election that person will have to run.
Mm-hmm.
So, just sort of thinking out loud, but I don't think we still need a person who can actually do the job without overburdening the clerk's office. But to the extent that someone's already there, and there could be some cost savings too, with an ineligible candidate, that could be a positive.
No, I think that depending on the pool of applicants we get, we may have some people very interested that fit that. So Corey and then Diane.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with all my colleagues here on strongly believe it needs to be somebody from out of town, somebody who is, ready to go on day one. Remaining questions I have, I think, Jean's point about potential, the broader point is potential, strings we would have with this. If we appoint somebody in the interim, is this going to affect calculations we have on, PEB or anything else, Chris? Or is there anything, such a temporary position won't affect any other planned budgets?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, we're budgeted for a full salary for a full year.
Okay.
And again, we'd like to find someone full-time. I mean, there is an assistant clerk too, who I at this point, again, we would have presented her immediately. She's not interested in being the full-time clerk, but we really wanted to stay in the office. So again, we can see if there's somebody available full-time, and we end up finding only someone who wants to work part-time. We don't know. We try to make some calls, by the way, and Carol has to find out who the association might be out there, because we want to find someone who can hit the ground running, because there's a lot of technical stuff the clerk does, a lot of postings, there's a lot of filings. And
I want to, and I think it's important that we don't understaff this. I think, having both a transitionary, hit as well as we can't also survive a part-time hit. So I'd strongly prefer a full-time, interim. Thanks.
Thanks, Corey. Diane?
I'm unmuted. I'm going to just bring up something that I'm not fully, haven't fully thought through, but in a lot of communities, the clerk position isn't an elected position. And I wonder if, at a subsequent meeting, we can have a discussion about whether that's something we want to entertain, so that, we could maybe add to or change a little bit of the job description. I have a very good friend who's town clerk and chief of staff in another larger community. And it works really well. So I just, I don't want us to be short-sighted in terms of what our long-term kind of staffing operational needs are, but I do think it's something maybe we could discuss at a future meeting. And I have no idea what ramifications there would be. I'm sure it would require obviously town meeting and legislative action, but it's just something I think this is an opportunity to make sure that that position is crafted as best as it can be to serve the community. So
a very big discussion point that I think we have to have separate from this, but I do think that's true. But again, this is a position that is being talked about widely in the news across the country right now. It's a really important position. Yeah, I definitely think that could open a whole other can of worms that we might not be ready to discuss right now. But
Fair
I
enough, yeah.
respect you. I respect you for bringing it up, Diane, and I think it's an important thing to talk about. But it seems like overall we're in agreement to appoint someone who is not interested in running for this position in the spring, and someone who is ready to hit the ground running day one. So I'm hoping that we can get some applicants. So all of you in this meeting right now, everyone watching right now, if you're thinking of anyone in your head that could possibly do this job and do this job well, please help to recruit them. It's really important that we find good people to apply for this. So I'm plugging this for anyone you know in surrounding towns, anyone who might be good. Let's try to get some really good applicants here. Miriam and Chris, do you have anything else to say?
I think we got the marching orders. So we have, the clerk's description. Again, we've already started to do some reach out. So we'll most certainly, in fact, I've already talked to people who know people who have been clerks. We may be, hopefully we'll be lucky. I mean, a lot of times when people retire as clerk, they're like, been a long run. The clerk in Hingham just retired, as a matter of fact.
I know.
Of course, he's already on the list. We're going to make a phone call. And we'll see what's out there. Miriam will report back as we go through the process. So
wonderful. Okay, we don't need an official vote on this, right? Do we?
I think we're good. I think you're in a consensus direction, because the vote, you're gonna need to get a vote on appointing someone at some point.
Yeah.
In a process. Okay. And again, as we get a little bit closer, Carol's willing to be flexible here. She's not locked in stone, and so we'll see how the process goes. And we want to make sure there's a transition too. I mean, she's not leaving town. She's still. Because she has so much knowledge, we want to make sure there's a seamless transition. So.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Miriam. Moving on to our town manager annual review for Chris Senior, our town manager. This is something we do yearly. And just to tee up this conversation, Jean, because you're new, you did not have to do all the paperwork the other four of us had to do, and this will be a new process for you, which you will be doing fully at our next year. But the four of us, me, Diane, Corey, and Jack, did fill out paperwork for Chris, just assessing our overall goals that we had as a town and as a select board, and an overall review process. Again, it's a yearly thing that we do, and all four of us have met with Chris to go over possible goals, possible things we want to work on in the future. So this process is to just let the public know how it's going and to present our overall brief performance summaries. So I'm going to give the four of us 2 minutes just to give the overall summary, which was part 3 in our packet, which, if just to remind everyone, part 3 is just comments regarding overall performance and specifically the best achievement that we think has been achieved this year, and a subject which we think would benefit the most from further action or improvement, and then just an overall summary. So hoping that we can all get this done in 2 minutes. I know a lot of us wrote a lot more than 2 minutes that we have mostly discussed with Chris. I was thinking it might be easiest just to go in alphabetical order for this. Jack, would you like to get us started with your 2 minutes, or if not, maybe Corey or Diane? Jack, you're muted. Hold on.
Let Corey go first.
All right.
All right.
Diane.
All right. Yeah. So obviously this is unprecedented year. Oversaid, but I think we're still at this point learning how difficult the last 12 months have been. My major theme is thanking Mr. Senior for finding a way for the town to continue to function through this. As far as I'm aware, we had no large outbreaks among staff. We kept the staff safe. We kept our residents safe. A lot of, in-town services were quickly transitioned to online. Maybe not the best online, but they were still available. There was a lot of creative thinking, a lot of hard work, a lot of long nights, a lot of early meetings. So Chris, thank you for your leadership in this time, especially when it comes to keeping, our budget and our finances in line, being conservative for the future. I appreciate, as I've worked with you the last 12 months, the enthusiasm you bring to things. There's no doubt in my mind that for your dedication to making this town as best as it can. And I encourage you to improve in one area in particular, which is the methods in which the town communicates with its residents. I think that there are a lot of boards that are made up from volunteers of residents that feel either understaffed or undersupported, or not given communication either in a timely fashion or are lacking some information. I do know that while there are challenges of the pandemic, there were a lot of unanswered questions that exist to this day about just operations of the town. And sometimes that leads to people coming up with their own answers. And that's just a symptom of our communications being a little bit too dispersed and not quite centralized or maybe efficient enough. So that's my biggest takeaway for you going forward, is to really rethink our communication strategy and to improve how town hall talks to its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. That was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Not bad.
Right.
So now I'll give everyone an extra 30-second grace because I gave you 30 seconds, but almost perfect. All right, Jack, you can go next.
Yeah, okay. I kind of would echo the communication. I've still been trying to find out if this is the second year where we have confidential information. I believe information should be to the public. And then it disappears. And then a direct report of the town manager, who was hired by the town manager, then puts things together and puts together a report that's inherently impossible. It puts the person, you cannot report to your direct boss. And I've seen some issues where, particularly 2 years ago, where it was a very one-sided thing. And my understanding is, I haven't been able to clarify, is that when the only thing that the public gets to see is this whitewashed report by a direct report of the town manager, and the other things are confidential. I have not spent a lot of time on this because I think everything needs to be fully public. And if we're going to write something, we should be able to show it to him and everybody who, the public. So I have a very serious problem. I've brought it up before, it's been ignored. Speaking of being ignored, I have outstanding FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act. And I have requested them, repeatedly requested them. I get partial, I get no things. And some of them raise issues that might in some legal sense raise issues as to performance of people in town hall. And once conveniently FOIAs are not met, that's a real problem. And I don't know how to deal with it. I just don't even bother to send them in anymore because they're not going to get answered. They get answered incompletely, and it takes a lot of my time. And I think, perhaps where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know, but we should certainly deal with that. We've also have, again, fines that are uncollected. Conservation has worked very, very hard. They were stonewalled for 3 years or two and a half years, $70,000 fine, and then we're told that it can't be collected, which is, I had given ways it could have been collected, but it gets ignored.
Second warning, Jack.
Okay, right, fine, right. So communications and email. Also, there's been chaos in Concom planning. And that, but back to what Corey says, that has to do with communications. So clearly, there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and I'm not even sure whether at this point, whether it can be cured. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Diane?
gonna keep with the reading. So the first question, or the first prompt, was best achievement, and I think pretty much what Corey said. The fact that we were able to keep Cohasset government strong and on course and meeting many of our select board goal objectives during a pandemic is very impressive, and a testament to really strong management and leadership from the top. And I'll, to some degree, include ourselves in that. So it was really well done, Chris. The subject which would benefit most from further attention, again, echoing my colleagues, time management, specifically to you, Chris, and also communication in general, so that residents, the select board, and committee needs are managed, supported, and done so in a timely manner. So I wrote a sort of a general paragraph I'm going to read, if you don't mind. The challenges posed by the pandemic were significant, from remote meetings and the infrastructure needed to conduct those, a drive-in town meeting, a very busy election year, including a national race, public health challenges, contact tracing, vaccine clinics, staff working from home, increased public safety and mental health concerns, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are just some of the things that we were dealing with, or Chris and his team were dealing with 24/7. Each day posed an unanticipated curveball, and Chris and his leadership team provided thoughtful, appropriate, sensitive, and very steady management of the pandemic. At the same time, we were able to take an active role in lobbying our MBTA to restore and service. You know, there were just all these things because of the pandemic that we were, you know, run over here and take care of this right now, run over here and take that right now. And at the same time, the town, again, was able to move forward. Most of the select board goals are absolutely in progress. Nothing was tabled or put aside for another year. Master plan implementation is going strong. Collective bargaining was conducted with all the bargaining units during the year. And critical long-term projects, including the town hall, et cetera, stayed on course. Chris manages a very complex organization at a very high level. Improved time management and more timely responsiveness to inquiries and emails remains something that Chris needs to work on. I encourage Chris and his team to look at using technology better, to better curate our website and social media output, do general communication planning, in addition to crisis communication planning, which I think we've done a good job with hiring the consulting firm to do that, and also having a triage plan for residents' concerns. Really think this is important, so that not every question that a citizen in town has, nor every question or something that a committee member has, needs to involve the select board or the town manager. So I think we need to take a real careful look at how do we curate what information goes where, sort of the ombudsman that can direct citizen inquiries. I mean, I'll get a call about, you know, the most random things, you know, somebody's assessment, for example.
10 seconds, Diane.
Yep, they shouldn't have to wait around, you know, to talk to a select board member or the town manager when there's an independent board of assessors. So generally, I think communication is something we all need to work on as a community. Chris, thank you very much for your hard work this year and keeping everything running smoothly during a pandemic.
All right, thank you, Diane. All right, we're doing pretty good with staying in time. So to echo what everyone else is saying, this has been, I hate using the word unprecedented because we've all used that, but it's just been, you know, a year that none of us ever thought we'd experience. And running a town is easy in, you know, a normal year, and being a town manager is difficult in a normal year. So I just want to commend Chris in general on being able to not only just survive, I think, but I do think we did thrive in certain areas as a town, although I do think there are some things that can be better, which I'll highlight in a moment. Best achievement, I think just maintaining our staff morale as much as possible. I know a lot of other towns had a lot of retention issues of being able to keep staff on based on all the difficulties with the pandemic. And overall, our staff has really been thriving and really doing well. So I'm really proud of that. And I think that that's partly because in part because of your leadership, Chris. I also do just want to highlight how I think our best achievements for Chris and all of us was actually both of our drive-in town meetings. I thought they were flawlessly run. I actually thought they were more fun. We got a lot of compliments that those meetings were not only really well run, but the town really enjoyed it. And it was a really great way to see each other and experience community. So I think just the logistical planning of our outdoor town meetings deserves to be highlighted because we got so many compliments on that. And they were really fun and they were run flawlessly, I thought. I also want to echo what all three of my other colleagues just said. I think that this pandemic in this past year definitely highlighted our strengths as a town and especially our, our fiscal strengths and maintaining our AAA bond rating. But I also think it highlighted where some of our weaknesses are. And I do think that is in the areas of technology and communication. And also I think being able to just juggle balls a little bit better. And by that, I mean, I think we can do a better job. Chris, you and us as a select board can do a better job of figuring out what short-term and long-term goals are. And especially with short-term stuff, I think that a lot of times maybe balls are getting dropped just because we have such bigger things that we're dealing with. And especially during a pandemic, I guess I would like for us to maybe stop letting certain things fall through the cracks. And I think that that is something that can be improved with some better technology and communication. Absolutely, our website and social media, I think, can be better. I think that we can do a better job at keeping our meetings transparent like this. So when we do start meeting in person again, we also can keep them accessible to people that might not be able to attend in person and make them, be continued to be on Facebook and our TV channel and everything. So I think that there are a lot of things we can do technologically in ways that we can better juggle the balls that we have in the air. I think that it's hard when we have so many long-term things and then a lot of short-term things. It's sometimes easy to drop those balls. So I think that that's something that can absolutely be an improvement. But overall, it's really hard to be a town manager. And the town, I think, did better than expected based on this past year. And I want to commend you on that, Chris. So I will let you respond now.
I don't often do this, but I have a quick little statement. And again, I want to thank all of you for the time, for meeting with me, and most importantly, for working with me. This is I always, when I speak with new staff and even board members, my analogy is that, local government is the ultimate team sport. We're all in this together. We're all working collaboratively towards goals. And as Carrie points out, many goals. And it's not one sport. It's actually many sports we're playing, right? Different goal lines. And the strength of this community is all of you and all of the others who serve all across the community. So quickly, a year ago, I made a statement to this board as part of my annual review that I would like to make again. It continues to be a personal and professional honor to serve the Cohasset community as town manager. I remain deeply grateful for the support offered by members of the select board and all the other boards, committees, and officials I work with during the course of the year. Together, we navigated an unprecedented, I'm sorry I used that word again, Carrie, public health crisis, which impacted everything we do, from public safety to library services to the schools to how we conducted town meeting and town elections. We collectively met those challenges, supporting one another during difficult moments, delivering critical services, and keeping the community safe. I want to express my personal thanks to every member of the staff and community who worked throughout this pandemic on behalf of Cohasset. It was a privilege to work alongside all of you. At the same time, we made significant progress on a wide range of community projects, from planning from the Elm Street corridor and town hall, to responding to the ongoing addiction and substance abuse crisis through Cohasset Safe Harbor and planning for a youth center, to celebrating the town's diversity, to maintaining a AAA bond rating and a strong fiscal foundation. I close as I opened with a line from last year I gladly share again. I look forward to the same collaborative partnership in the year to come to tackle the new challenges ahead and the new goals this board will establish. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris. And I will just say for everyone watching tonight too, our goal setting meeting, which is a really big deal because it helps us to be able to work collaboratively with Chris every year. And I feel like he can't do good if we don't do good as a select board setting our goals. So that meeting is officially this next Tuesday. We're meeting in person at the senior center. It will be broadcast live. And I'm very excited for that because I think that we can set the tone then for goals that we have. And it already sounds like we have a consensus on what we maybe want one of our major goals to be on that. So I'm really looking forward to goal setting, and hopefully we can do well at that meeting for you, Chris, because again, these relationships go hand in hand, and we all have to be in this together. And especially hopefully moving out of a pandemic now, we can dream a little bigger with our goals this year. All right.
Well, yeah, thank you all. And by the way, you moved so quickly. We're 25 minutes out of schedule.
I noticed that. I got in trouble last meeting by all of my fellow board members that the meeting went too long. So I'm trying to really run a tight ship tonight.
No, I will tell you, I spoke with Rob, Don and I spoke with Rob Hillman a little earlier. 7 o'clock is their time. They're not going to have their quorum till 7, so you're going to have to reorder this a little bit.
I'm glancing at that now. I do think we maybe could get a couple licenses, permits done. I do see Ted in the audience. Maybe we could let's see. I'm not sure if we should do field.
Or we take a 20-minute break and reconvene at 7, because there are other things on the agenda that.
I know. I'm
sorry.
looking if there are any that don't really matter. I guess not matter, but the general public doesn't care.
You could do minutes and things like that. I guess you can do some technical stuff, maybe get those out of the way.
Yeah, do I want to approve some minutes?
Those are just form stuff.
I would like to make a motion that we move the approval of minutes from 8:40 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., 6:37 p.m. tonight.
Do we have a second? I think
I'll
Diane.
second. Oh,
All right, Jean seconded. All right. All right, we will now move on to approving our minutes just to waste some time.
We have to vote that.
Oh,
Carrie?
yeah, roll call vote to do that. All right, we have a vote.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey
Hold
Evans,
on, Jack.
aye.
Okay, Jack Creighton, aye. Okay, Corey.
Corey Evans,
That
aye.
was a motion to adjourn, right?
Jack, you'll never know. You left us quickly. You'll never know what you just voted for.
You should see the emptiness already in my life.
All right, Jack and Corey voted aye to move the minute votes down. Jean or Diane?
I seconded.
Okay. You have to,
We're-
you all, okay, let's start over. We have a motion and second to reorder our agenda, to move the approval of minutes down to 6:40 instead of 7:40 to not waste time. So we now need to take a roll call vote on that, on moving the minutes. So you're voting to be able to vote on them. All right, so Jack, I believe you're voting aye.
Aye.
Corey
Okay,
Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippled aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye. Okay, now we can entertain a motion. Yes, Diane.
Yeah, I just, there's 2 sets of minutes that have very minor typos on it. So if we could move 6:8 and 6:10 first, deal with
Sure.
them.
All right, do we want to make a motion to approve the minutes from 6:8 and 6:10, and then we'll deal with the other 2 with changes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. So voting to approve the minutes from 6:8 and 6:10, 2021, starting with Jack.
Until such time as we have full recording of the minutes, I vote nay.
Okay,
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippled aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye. All right, moving on to possible changes that need made for 5:25 and 6:3.
So yeah, if you could just indulge me on the 6:3 minutes. It's a very minor typo. It's Woody Chittick, and it says Wood Chittick. So if we could just
Great eye.
so I'd be happy to move the set of minutes for 6/3/2021 with that edit.
I would do it.
I don't know if that's a second or not, but I'd second.
Cool. I don't think that was a second for Jack. So we
I
have
would second.
all right. We have a motion and a second for 6/3/2021. All right. Jack, go ahead and begin the vote. Roll call vote.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippled abstain, as I was not on the board yet.
Okay.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. All right.
Okay, and then this is a little more substantive, and I apologize because I said I was going to get this correction the last time we went to vote on the May 25th minutes, but it's just a sort of an important clarification in the minutes. During select board comment period, it notes that I said I shared a story about my brother who served in the Marines. And I just want to clarify or at least expand on that, I'll read you what I think it should say. And then Tracy, if you could just make the correction, that I said something about my brother's Marine Corps co-pilot who died after serving multiple tours in Iraq. So I think the point for me, the distinction is I was speaking about him as somebody to, give some thought to on Memorial Day, as opposed to my brother's service, which I'll get him on November 11th or Veterans Day.
I will change it.
Thank you. So is that clarification clear enough?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. That's important. And thanks for sharing that story. All right, with those changes that Diane just proposed, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from 5:25?
So moved.
Okay, second, do we have a second?
I'm sorry, would you mind, my apologies, Chair, just Diane, just restating exactly what you wanted to say? I wasn't quite clear. My apologies.
Okay, sorry, only because I wrote down like the last half of the sentence.
It's a personal story for you, so I'm going to let you restate it. I can summarize it if you want, but.
Hold on, I'm just going to pull up the minutes so that I have them in front of me so I can say exactly. So currently it says she shared a story about her brother, who is a Marine Corps fighter pilot. And I am proposing that we correct it to say she shared a story about her brother's Marine Corps co-pilot who died after serving multiple tours in Iraq from disease sustained during the war, but we don't need to add that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Corey, was that summarized?
That's wonderful. Yep, I appreciate that. Thank you for entertaining me.
All right, does anyone have any issues with that change? All right, seeing there are no issues, let's make a motion again to approve the minutes from 5:25 with the suggested changes Diane just.
So moved, yep.
Okay, and a second. All right, let's do, Corey, I think, did you second, Corey?
Second, I'll second, yeah.
All right. All right, let's roll call vote for these minutes. All right.
Jack Creighton, nay.
Corey
Okay.
Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippled abstain.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. All right, the approval of minutes is done. We still have 17 minutes. I am thinking that maybe we could do the safe harbor vigil request and possibly Red Lion in change of manager, because I do see Nicole and Ted in the audience. If we maybe want to try to get those done. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible without rushing us now. Let's promote Nicole. And so do we have can we make a motion to move we need to make a motion to move our licenses, permits for a couple of them to start now.
So moved.
Okay. Second, do we have a second? Diane,
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote real quick, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippled aye, as to safe harbor, abstain as to Red Lion Inn.
Okay.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Okay. Carrie Thompson, aye. So we can definitely start with safe harbor. All right. Hi, Nicole.
Hi all, how are you?
Thank you for being here early, and thank you for bringing Mateo earlier. He was great. I hope he was okay. I know he was a little nervous.
Thank you for the opportunity. With the more exposure, the better. That's how they perfect their public speaking. So
I agree. I agree. All right. Tell us about the vigil plans that you have.
all right. So it's hard to believe that we are approaching our 4th annual vigil, candlelight vigil. We try to have it on August 31st every year. There are some years where it falls on Labor Day weekend, but this year it does not. So we are fortunate enough to have the opportunity, hopefully, to host the 4th annual Overdose Awareness Vigil on August 31st, which is International Overdose Awareness Day, which is a global event that aims to reduce the stigma around drug-related deaths, opioid or not, alcohol included. And acknowledge the grief that is felt among our friends, our family, our community members, while raising overdose awareness. So we, in past years, have had this on the Commons, and we're hoping again to have it on the Commons on August 31st, 6:45 to 8. We'd be there around 5:45 to start setup. And it's typically 3 speakers who speak on hope, community, and a story of loss. We typically have a person who has lost someone to the battle of addiction, and then we have youth who will do the whole entertainment piece with their singing abilities. So we will have 2 big speakers, as we normally do, microphones, and then a display on a projector for all the pictures that get sent in of those who have been lost to the battle. So we are welcoming pictures to be emailed to Laurie Pearson, who is our project coordinator, and those pictures will be displayed on loop throughout the entire vigil, just to remember those who have been lost among us.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. And I will say, as someone who's attended this the past couple of years, it's a really moving event and a really powerful event for the community to be able to take part in and to experience. So thank you for doing this for another year. Does the board have any questions looking over the details of this event? No questions? Okay. Oh, Jack, I see your hand.
Yeah, I think we need to again remember how important this is. There are many, many hidden stories in Cohasset. And I think we also need to be aware that there's an upsurge of other types of addictions. Alcohol is again becoming rampant. We tend to forget that. So what Safe Harbor is doing is not only are they saving or helping to save many of our children, but the families. And the families, we're now seeing the scourge is hitting adults. It's hitting alcohol is again increasing. COVID did not help on that. So as a community, we need to remember it's not just our kids, it's our moms and our dads. And it's not just the opioids, it's now including alcohol. So must be aware of that. And thank you, Nicole. You do good work.
That's well said, Jack. I think every single person at this point in life has some story or relation to addiction. So it's something that I'm really proud that our community does every year. And yes, Nicole, thank you for all of this planning.
No, honestly, people thank me, but it takes a village, and we have a really supportive community. Cohasset has been behind us all the way, and the fact that we now have Evoke Wellness in our community as a resource in our backyard, I think that speaks volumes to. I mean, there's still stigma that we have to battle, but we are on the uptrend when it comes to battling stigma, when it comes to addiction. So I thank the community through and through every single day. We wouldn't be Safe Harbor. We wouldn't still be here without the community support. So thank you, Jack, for those words. And I'm here to answer additional questions.
I agree, Diane.
Sorry, I felt like I needed to take the opportunity just to echo what Jack said, but I am personally involved with the Drug Story Theater, and which is an incredible drug prevention program, and they hold Safe Harbor Cohasset as the model community organization dealing with addiction prevention and education, et cetera. And it makes me so proud every time I talk to my friend at Drug Story Theater. And there's so many challenges for a lot of these organizations that haven't been able to go into facilities or schools and do what they do. This has been an incredibly challenging year. And again, they just cannot say enough good things about the people in Cohasset and Safe Harbor in particular. So thanks.
Oh, thank you for that.
Source of great pride.
Yeah, I love Drug Story Theater. Great
well.
organization.
Yeah.
Diane, I always can count on you to make an appeal to the arts. I love it.
It's my passion.
All right. So clearly it seems like we have a unanimous vote here, but do we have a motion an official motion to approve this vigil for August 31st?
So moved.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans votes aye for Tuesday, October 31st, 6:45 to 8 p.m. for the candlelight vigil.
Wait.
Jean Neal,
August 31st.
Corey, it's
August 31st. My apologies. I tried to do that and I messed it up.
You're testing us, Corey, just seeing if we're paying attention, okay?
Good evening, everybody.
Just to confirm, this is for August 31st. Okay, Corey Evans votes aye, correct? Okay, Jean,
Jean Haley Dipple votes aye. Thank you, Nicole, for your hard work.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. All right, thank you so much, Nicole, and you got done a little early tonight.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
All right, we now have 8 minutes. I saw Chief Quigley here. I don't know if we have time to start talking about the intermunicipal agreement for the animal control officer. That's one option. I also see Ted Lubitz here, although Jean, you expressed that you maybe think that should be held till.
Uh,
7:20.
No, I'm sorry, Carrie, just to be clear, I was just abstaining because I'm a neighbor.
Oh, okay. Oh, so we can still, all right, great.
can
Well, welcome,
proceed,
Ted. Okay,
That's
I
it.
wasn't sure about that, Jean.
I'm
Thank you.
just going to abstain.
All right. Hi, Ted.
Hi, just before you begin, can you promote Tony Dochev? Perfect. He's now.
Yep. Should be coming in. Hi, Tony, if you can.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, welcome. All right, so we have a change of manager request, I believe, for the Red Lion Inn. Ted, give us the summary.
So I want to introduce everybody to Tony Dochev, our new general manager for Cohasset Hospitality Partners, and particularly for the Red Lion Inn. As many of you know, Guillaume has left us. He went back to be with his family on the West Coast. So we were very sad to lose him, as he really got us through a tough time that we all just discussed with the pandemic. But we're very excited to have Tony with us. I don't know if you're provided with his resume, but he's got incredibly deep and extensive experience as a general manager in hospitality, and we feel very lucky to have him on board. And if you haven't met him, I hope you come down to the Red Lion and introduce yourselves, or I'm sure you'll see him out and about. But I'd like to turn it over to him, and he can provide an update on who he is. But this is very specific request for a change of manager from essentially Guillaume to, actually not from Guillaume, but from our former liquor license manager to Tony.
Thank you, Ted. And hi, Tony, welcome.
Hi, good evening. So I want to thank all of you for the time and for the opportunity to be part of this great community. So I'm so excited to be part of Cohasset, so excited to be part of the Red Lion Inn company. So I just want to let you know that I deeply care about the brand and I deeply care about the community. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about my experience. So recently I moved from, I was a food and beverage director at the 4-star hotel in Springfield, Missouri. I was there for opening a second part of the hotel. So I was there for about 1 year. So prior to that, I opened a hotel in downtown Boston called Cambria Hotel. It's a 169-room hotel with a beautiful restaurant, a nice bar, and a rooftop deck that we can accommodate about 300 people. So before that, we used to be a part of a Seaport Hotel in the World Trade Center. I was assistant food and beverage director for this company. I was there for about a couple of years. And before that, I used to work for Intercontinental Hotel Group in Cleveland. I was there for about 3 years. And I was like a cluster assistant food and beverage director managing 3 hotels. Intercontinental Hotel Conference Center, Intercontinental Hotel Suites, and a Holiday Inn, all there under one ownership, Cleveland Clinic. So before Cleveland, I used to work and live in Las Vegas. I was there for about 16 years, working in different companies. My last property was Mandarin Oriental. Also, I work for MGM International and I work for Caesar Palace. So originally I'm from Bulgaria. Bulgaria is a part of Eastern Europe. I moved with my family in 2002. Before United States, I used to live and work in South Africa. So I graduated from military school. I've been in Army for about 10 years. I was a tank commander, and also I was in military police as well. I have a master's degree of engineering and also bachelor degree of hospitality. And I'm so glad to be here now.
Thank you, Tony. That's an impressive and interesting
Yeah,
resume.
thank you.
Really interesting background. All right.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing all that about you. The Red Lion Inn's a special place. Obviously,
absolutely.
Want to keep it thriving. I'm going to open this up to the board if anyone has questions for Tony and or Ted about this change of manager request. Diane.
I actually didn't have too much of a question, but I was glad to hear of your military experience because as I'm sure you've realized in any business, even in Cohasset, things sometimes you have to hold the law. and that's our role in this is the liquor regulations come from this board, and so we're happy to have somebody with your experience.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy and I'm so proud to be part of the community and part of the company.
I second what Diane said. Corey, did I see a hand?
Yeah, much less deep than that. I have to go to Vegas once a year for a conference, and I'm not really a Vegas guy. I usually stay at the Mandarin, or now it's the Waldorf. So thank you for the work there. It's a little island of not Vegas, which I appreciate. And thank you for thank you for sharing everything, your life story. It's incredible. And the properties you'll manage are things here that are really kind of gems and the community really values. So we're glad to see they're in good hands.
Thank you so much, Corey.
Yes, just to clarify for the town, we're not trying to turn the village into the Vegas Strip.
No.
Unless we want that. That's a whole other discussion.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
All right, Jack.
Yeah, I can't resist Bulgaria. Every 4th of July, I get an email. Some friends of mine from Bulgaria, a retired mathematics professor. And when he came to America, he had no place to go. And we arranged for him. I actually had him in one of the properties that I owned. And all hail Bulgaria. I will bring him down and have him spend a weekend at the Red Lion Inn, and you can speak Bulgarian.
I'm so happy to do that.
Welcome to Cohasset.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you so much.
Jack, you might need a Bulgarian flag behind you too.
Well, I will do that. All I have to do is they will send it to. We are great friends.
And thanks, Jack, for helping us waste our last couple minutes before advisory comes in. So thank you for that.
I only do what I'm good at.
All right. So any other substantive questions for Tony? It sounds like we're all intrigued and impressed by his resume and his qualifications to do this position. All right. Seeing no other question. Oh, Corey.
No, I would like to make a motion that we approve Tony Dochev as the new Executive Director of Food and Beverage for the Red Lion Inn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. The motion's been seconded. We will now take a roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye. All right.
Welcome.
Gene's abstaining.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Tony. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Oh, please be my guest.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good job, everyone. We made it till 7 and we're productive in the process. I believe we got our advisory committee trickling in now. I'm seeing some names. So we'll give that a minute. Hi, Fran. Hi, Jean. Hi, Lee.
Can you try to promote Rob, Tracy? It won't let me for some.
I'm trying to, but it's not working for some reason. Maybe it just worked though. Hold on. Here. Did we get him?
All right, Rob should be in here now. Rob, can you see us or hear us? Waiting for Rob.
I'm here.
Hi, Rob. Okay, great. I heard that we're cautiously optimistic you're going to have quorum tonight.
I have 5 people who represented they'd be here, so I'm hopeful.
All
Who do
right.
you have?
We have, yes. So we have Jean, we have Fran, and Lee.
And me and Meg Wheeler will make a quorum.
All right, we are waiting for Meg. And while we wait for Meg, I will say this is a yearly thing that we do with our FY21 year-end transfers as an official joint meeting. So as soon as Meg arrives and they get called to order, we will let Dawn give us the update on that. But this is a yearly thing that we do, so most people here are familiar with this process. Hi, Lee. Nice to see your face.
Finally got you.
Waiting for one more person.
May I ask just a quick question of Rob?
Sure, Corey.
Rob, I know you guys are in need of some new membership. Do you want to make a little bit of a pitch while you have the public's ear?
Good call,
Well,
Corey.
We are having a meeting shortly with the committee that is responsible for clearing those nominations, and there are some applicants who seem to be highly qualified. We're probably in need of 1, maybe 2 additional people, and if they'd like, I assume that the applications are available on the town website. But I'm hopeful that we'll be back up to full strength by September and ready to get more engaged in the process earlier than we were able to last year. But if people are interested in the advisory committee, now is the time to submit an application. I think we're showing 5, but one of them is my first 3-year term has expired, and I don't know if Dan and Kerry wish I'll stay on for another 3. I don't. We'll find out how that referendum goes. I'm hopeful that we'll have a full complement very shortly and be able to get to work early in the process and maybe do a little bit, get a little farther ahead of these questions than this last year permitted us to do. So
thank you, Rob. And that's a great plug. Again, this has been a very tough year and we've all kept our heads above water, and you have as well as a committee. So thank you to that. And like you said, hopefully if anyone knows anyone who might be a good candidate for this, please get out and recruit.
Okay.
All right, Rob, we officially have quorum now. So yes, Meg is here. So Rob, if you want to open up your meeting and get a roll call, we can then move on to Dawn.
I'd be happy to. Bear with me for a second. I'm doing this remotely, but okay. So with respect to the advisory committee meeting noticed for 7 p.m. This evening, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20B, and following the declaration of a state of emergency in the Commonwealth arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic, the advisory committee will conduct this meeting virtually utilizing Zoom technology, and all votes will be taken by a roll call vote. So to open the meeting, I'll call the roll. Gina Stino.
Present.
Fran Collins.
Present.
Lee Jenkins,
Present.
Meg Wheeler,
Present.
and Rob Hillman. I am present. So Carrie,
Yes.
since you're the senior committee here, we'll defer to you to sort of chair things generally.
Yes.
And my folks will chime in with questions as the time comes.
Perfect.
Does that work?
All right.
Does that work for you?
That works perfectly. And yes, all of you can ask questions after we let Dawn give the brief update. So we officially have a joint meeting between Select Board and Advisory. This is for our FY21 year-end transfers. And this is a yearly process. And I'm going to let Dawn just give a brief overview of what we're voting on. And then I will open up the floor for questions from either the Select Board or the Advisory Committee members. Hi, Dawn.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, as Kerry mentioned, this is an annual thing that we do towards year end. Instead of town meeting making these changes, Municipal Modernization Act a few years ago, to make life easier for communities, allowed communities to do this with Select Board and Advisory approval to do all these transfers at year end instead of essentially a town meeting. In the past, it was restricted to about 3% of a department's budget, and they never really allowed you to do non-department budget transfers. So you had a surplus in health or debt service, you couldn't use that to help, say, offset a cost of snow and ice for a year. So this has become more consistent here in many communities across the Commonwealth with the change from the Municipal Modernization Act. So the two documents I provided are the actual transfers that I'm proposing with a brief description. And then also, I believe I prepared this either last year or the last 2 years, but basically a history of the transfers, just so there's a little context to kind of how we've done in the past. Are these somewhat consistent transfers? And I felt like last year it was helpful to both boards to have that. So I provided that again this year. And Chris has brought up the proposed transfers. Thank you. And as you can see, most of them are salary adjustments. And so salary adjustment, what we do here is we budget in the town manager's department align for merit increases and steps, essentially. So most salary adjustments that we're seeing here are related to somebody getting a step in addition to their COLA. Maybe they've gotten another merit increase because of the work they've done in the preceding year. And so a good majority of these are related to salary adjustments. A couple of bigger items that are also consistent with prior years of these size are our town council transfer. For the most part, since 2017, we've been budgeting a flat 150,000, and really these are variable from year to year. At a certain point, we don't have. I mean, we have control over how much we spend, but some things come up that require more work. Some years are less. So when you look at the history, I can provide a breakdown. I actually have my assistant kind of track every month what the invoices are for and the various reasons. But this is really just a variable year over year, and we consistently had a transfer from town council each of the last 4 years. And another one that's really a normal occurrence here is also the police department. The transfer 240 we talked about during our budget cycle, the overtime issues in the department. So 165,000 of this transfer relates to police department overtime, and then other costs related to essentially COVID that we expect to submit reimbursement requests to FEMA. This could be they hired some additional help for the desk attendant or covered shifts for the desk attendants so they could have a 24-hour presence during a pandemic. Pardon me. Some officers were promoted to lieutenants on a part-time, on a short-term basis, so they could have coverage on each shift of the ranking officer. So some of those expenses have been tracked and provided to Glenn Pratt, and we've submitted for reimbursement that we're hoping to receive from FEMA. Another big guy here too, snow and ice, about 80,000. This one's very variable year over year. Last year we had no transfer because it was a warm winter. This year, 80,000. And that's for the most part, the summary of these. I'd be happy to take any questions. And the transfers from are, like I said, the merit increase line that we have in the department in town manager. We're transferring the balance in the reserve fund of 205,000, $30,000 surplus from the fire department budget, and balancing the rest with the surplus from the health department, the health insurance budget.
Okay, thank you, Don. I see Fran and Diane's hand. I'm going to ask one question quickly, and that's all I have, and then I'll let Fran go next. Don, do we have any concerns about the expected FEMA reimbursement? Is there any way that you think it might not happen, and then that could turn into a big problem? Or you know, how sure are you that that's going to happen, and what happens if they don't reimburse is my overall question.
So definitely for the police personnel, we're confident. Glenn has gotten great feedback from our MEMA reps who work closely with FEMA as it goes through the process. I don't really have any concern. It's just a really long time for FEMA to get back.
Yeah.
If anybody's been around for any snowstorms, those have taken multiple years to get back. So this is something where we have enough money in the budget to cover it with budgetary year-end transfers. And so essentially, if we get, when I expect to get reimbursed, it'll basically be a one-time revenue in the subsequent year. So we won't have to be worrying about moving grant monies around. We've submitted based on actual expenses that have occurred. Actually, we have between 20 and 21 expenses that we're waiting on. That will just basically be a one-time revenue source that will hopefully happen in, I would hope, fiscal 22.
Thank you. That answers my question. All right, Fran, I saw your hand next, and then Diane and Jean.
I got two questions for you, Don. I got the town council. Is that 130,000 over the 150,000 budgeted?
Yes, and so this year the increase is essentially due to a legal settlement of $75,000 that was paid during the year. It was something approved by the select board during executive session back in October. And so if you take that out, really we're about a $55,000 overage for attorney costs. And when you look at it year over year, that's pretty much right in line with what we've experienced in the last 4 or 5 years.
All right, the other question I have is on the snow removal. Is this $80,000 in addition to the budgeted money for snow removal?
Correct. So we budget $125,000 a year. Actual expenses came in just around $205,000.
Wow, I thought this was almost a snowless winter for at least down here in tropical Cohasset, where I live down the south end of town. But okay,
may not be a lot of snow removal, but definitely, you know, having to take care of icy roads and things like that.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Fran, does that answer your questions?
Yep. Thank you.
All right, Diane, you're up next.
Yep, mine have actually almost been answered. One of my questions was the legal and whether that included a settlement. And I think, you know, going forward, especially where we're going to be addressing legal, and we also have had discussions about committees that really need legal guidance as they go through their operations. I think it would be great for all of us to understand going forward, you know, how much of that is bullable with having a lawyer present at a meeting, because to me, that's an argument to, you know, to start building that into a budget. But the fact that a lot of that is a settlement, that was my main question. My second question was just on if you could remind me, Dawn, because I forget, the mechanics of when we do get the reimbursement. Let's say it's in 2 years, how does that money get backfilled and where does it end up?
So within the revenue budget, I have a line item. It's not actually budgeted, but in our chart of accounts, we have a line item for federal grant reimbursements. So essentially what would happen is, similar to tax liens and deferrals that are received, it's something that's not budgeted, but when the revenue comes in, we'll post it in the year received. It's a reimbursement based on expenses from prior years. So since we're covering them with these transfers, We don't have to move any expenses when that comes in. It's purely just a revenue surplus for that fiscal year that we receive it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Jean.
Fran and Diane and Dawn essentially answered my question about the legal fees, which to Diane's point is particularly important that we understand that these aren't our current lawyers sort of going wild. This is more of a settlement that's really accounting for the overage and probably shouldn't be frankly termed as legal counsel because not, it's a settlement and it should be reflected as such.
That's a very good point. Maybe we want to adjust that line item, Don.
So it's based on a department. That's how these transfers are done. So at the end of the year, once I get everything closed, you'll get a great report. And you'll see in the legal department 2 lines. Town council, which are essentially any of our attorney fees. And then you'll see the legal settlement, which was unbudgeted. Of course, all legal settlements are essentially unbudgeted. And you'll see that breakdown in the year-end reporting.
Okay. Jean, do you have a follow-up about that?
No, I think we can handle it later.
Okay.
If I didn't answer, I'd like to at least understand what I missed.
I think it's more just confusion about what that meant in terms of the line item, Don, but we understand they're coming from certain departments too, so we don't want to confuse the process. I think Jean was just clarifying where the money was allocated in terms of a settlement versus legal overage.
Yeah, because we're in the process of hiring lawyers, including looking back at the cost of of who we have hired, and then thinking about it going forward. So a part of me is just trying to make sure we have that clearly understood.
Oh, absolutely. If you wanted a report based on expenses, I could run that for you, and that legal settlement would not skew those figures at all. It would be easily identifiable. And like I said, in the last few years, our department has actually been taking every invoice that comes in and really tracking it by item within each bill and the firm themselves. So we have a good handle on what has actually been spent in the last few years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I think one of the things good point, Jean. I think what Jean's pointing out is that perhaps when we prepare the budget, we should differentiate legal expenses from settlement costs. So in the future, and maybe when you're doing your line items, you can create a new category. Makes it easier for everybody to understand.
So I will say, I hear you, and we can definitely consider that. I would say most, if not all, communities do not budget legal settlement. Some may do if they have regular settlements, but there's part of Mass General Law is the DOR allows you to raise this on the subsequent recap because it usually is few and far between dealing with the legal settlement. So it's not normally a big budget line item. We can surely make one if folks want to put in a line item for legal settlements, and it could,
That's what you could figure out how to do. It's just, it would be a lot clearer for not just us, but for people at large when they go through that, if we could clearly see what are settlements and what are normal legal. And you're the accountant, you can figure that one out.
It doesn't seem like we have an issue with the transfer itself though, Don. I think we're just talking about clarifying for communication purposes in terms of what Jack and Jean are saying. Okay, Lee, I see your hand up.
Still on the town council situation. I'm just curious. I didn't know anything about this, of course. Why wasn't the settlement paid off by the insurance company?
Well, there were a few, and some was covered by the insurance, and then there was a portion that had to be paid by the town.
And I do see that Jim Lampke just came in the room for another agenda item. I might let Jim answer that if we want, but I will say, Lee, those of us who took part in some of these settlements are not able to speak about them, but we came to the settlements as best as we could, to protect the town in the best way possible. Hi, Jim. Do you, thank you for being here listening to that. I don't know if you can help us clarify that answer for Lee that Lee just asked about the settlement amounts versus what insurance was willing to cover. I'm not sure how to legally best say that without getting us in trouble. So I'd appreciate your help on that.
Sure, I'll try to be helpful. I'm not familiar with the particular case that you're talking about, but just speaking generally, you have insurance, and insurance, though, only covers certain claims, and there may be claims that are not covered by insurance, and you could have a lawsuit, for example, that includes claims that are covered by insurance and not covered by insurance. The insurance company, in those instances, usually has an obligation to defend all the defendants, all the municipal defendants in the matter. But when it comes time to settle the case, if it's one that's going to be settled, there may be certain claims that are not covered by the policy, but that's different than their obligation to defend, the officials and the town. So that's the best I can do about knowing the particulars.
Yeah, no,
of the
that's,
case.
I think that's a good broad explanation. Lee, does that make sense or clarify anything for you, or do you have a follow-up?
Well, I'm gonna get off that subject. That's fine for that.
Okay.
But one other question I had was snow and ice.
Okay.
The $80,000, I think it's 80,000, let's see.
Yeah.
80,000 overage. Did that include, did that include any equipment, like a broken snow plow? That's how a lot of that stuff is put into the, is that strictly snow, not strictly sand and salt? Or is there any equipment involved in that number?
Sorry, I was muted there, Lee. There are some equipment maintenance costs in here. So we have normally 5,000 budgeted for equipment maintenance. We spent 8,800. So that's 3,800. And then that's for the most part, anything related to equipment. Otherwise, it's the majority of it is sand, salt, and overtime
labor
paid to the drivers.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Lee. All right. I'm looking for any other hands for questions for Dawn. All right, I do not see any. So it looks like we can move on to official motions here to approve these transfers.
A motion?
Go ahead, Diane.
I move that we approve a total of $588,600 of FY21 year-end transfers as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Select board will vote with a roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dippold, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye. All right, Rob.
Well, the temptation is to simply say what she said, but I suppose we'll have to be more formal than that. Can I have a motion that the advisory committee approve the transfer of $588,600 in year-end transfers in the form presented by Mr. Piat. Lee moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Meg, thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Lee Jenkins,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Aye.
and Rob Hillman is an aye.
Great.
So with that, I believe our
Yes.
participation in this meeting comes to an end. So thank you for your hospitality as always, but I suppose I need a.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, I
vote.
think you need to adjourn.
I do.
I make a
Motion to adjourn. Oh,
Second.
Jack, wrong meeting, Jack.
I'm sorry.
I thought I saw Fran, then Lee. So that's what I'll declare our motion and second to be. So roll call vote. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Lee Jenkins,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Aye.
and Rob Hillman is an aye. Thank you for participating on the relatively late notice for us. And thanks again to the select board for making this quick and efficient.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you to advisory for coming and getting that done. I'm happy we can cross that off our to-do list.
Pleasure. Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your night, advisory.
Thanks for all of FY21.
Yes.
Good
Thank
work.
you, Don. Thank you, Don, for all the info.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Diane,
Oh,
I'm
go ahead, Rob.
actually in a practice room at the conservatory and I'm on my way over to band practice. So
that's so cool.
Motion to adjourn. Yeah. Jack, give me a second.
Motion to adjourn. Did I miss something?
I'm gonna go where Rob is.
Before I get thrown out. So
oh, enjoy.
Have a good practice, Rob. We have very talented volunteers in town.
I used to, on Tuesday nights, I used to do Rusty Skippers with Rob, but for the last years.
We're going to have to do a talent show with all the talent in town that I'm hearing. You're tempting me to plan that. All right. That is done. Moving on to finishing the licenses, permits. Jim, we went in ahead and actually did Safe Harbor and Red Lion in a little bit earlier because we surprisingly got done with some other agenda items earlier. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. We also have to reschedule the Cohasset Golf Club change of manager application. They are asking if they can reschedule that for our final meeting in July, which I don't think should be a problem. So we have to take that off. So the one thing we still have to do is the filming request for Countess Productions that has been getting a lot of excitement and generating a lot of excitement in town. So I believe we have some friends joining us from the production company. Tracy, if you can promote them. Chris, I think, is coming in. Hi, Chris, if you can hear us and see us.
Unmute. How about now?
There we go. Yes, we can hear you now. Hi.
Very good. Start my video. Hold on. I am working on very little sleep. Okay. All right. There we are.
All right.
There we are.
Welcome, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I got to say, just watching you guys work, I wish our Zoom meetings were full as half as many smiles. We would get a lot more done. Thanks for the time.
Our pleasure.
It is yours, so however you want to do it. I was thinking going through the schedule day by day. There really hasn't been that many changes, but I could update you on the times and when fireworks will happen and all that.
Yep, I think based on the conversation at our last meeting, we just wanted a little more specificity from your schedule and for you to update us on any possible changes of requests, and especially related to the fireworks. I think the board is interested in. So
all
really,
that information.
yeah, give us a quick
luckily,
update.
The times haven't really changed much, but we'll go through it again.
right.
Thursday, July 21st, our day one is still our daytime driving shots from 3 to 8. We would go to then move to the Government Island dock. We'll say 6 to 12 with the hopes that we finish those daytime driving shots a little bit earlier, because really the bulk of the time we'll need will be on that dock. Then we go back after the dock, we go back to the nighttime driving shots, which would still take us from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. But going back to the government dock for a second, we will have a skiff full of fireworks. That's the first. So this is night one that we would be shooting off any kind of fireworks. We take the skiff out into the water, far away from any of the other boats. There has to be a certain distance. I don't recall if it's 150 feet or 250 feet, but whatever the footage is where we would be. And they would fire off remotely from the dock. And before we go any further, because there are other nights that will have fireworks, and I think really what everybody wants to know is what I got downloaded from my special effects coordinator today is regarding what type of fireworks we're using. So I will just, if you'll forgive me, I am going to verbatim read what he wrote, because I will, if I try to talk to the technicality on the fly, I will for sure stumble all over myself. So all fireworks being used at this location are called close proximity fireworks. Which means smaller fireworks, not a grand display like you see on the 4th of July, but fireworks that only travel a distance of 250 feet. So they're basically made for these types of film shoots. They are, not only will it match the story, you guys don't care about that. Well, actually, no, you might. Not only will it match the story, which is that they're store bought, like smaller mom and pop, not like from a Macy's fireworks display company. They're meant to be what they are, which are a small distraction. These are made to reduce any ash or fallout from the display, and the sound is, and this is where it gets a little murky. According to the company, they're very quiet. But when I hear that in my mind, it's like what a fireworks company considers quiet and what a normal person would consider quiet are going to be two wildly different things. But they're telling me that it'll be the sound of a firecracker. So like a single firecracker, if you were to throw it, it would go pop. That's the sound you're going to hear. What it's not going to be is boom, 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 where like windows are shaking or, you know, any kind of light display is going to be all post-production with visual effects. So what we're looking to do is just have the audience buy the fact that we're firing off fireworks. If we tried to film that, it would never look, the reality would never look as good as what we would look by doing it as a visual effect. So we want to sell the fact that they're being shot. Once they're shot, we don't need the big, bright, you know, flashy display. So that won't be there. It is, so if I go back to stop ad-libbing now, and okay, these fireworks will have no quote unquote report, which is fireworks lingo for loud bang. No louder than a firecracker. These will be tested at some point this week. Our special effects coordinator is going to take some video. So I'm happy to forward that video to you guys if you're interested in seeing it, and it'll give you a bit of a better idea, I hope, as to what, you know, the noise impact would be.
Okay.
So that's what our special effects coordinator was able to chime in on.
And Chris, quick question on that. Are these going to be just repeatedly going over and over for filming throughout the night during these times, or do you think you'll get the shot within a couple
I think we will get the shot, because ultimately the sun will rise and we need to be done before that time, which is not to say, I would say it would happen sporadically throughout the night, but not continuously.
Because we also just want to make sure to be able to warn neighbors and residents of the town about what sounds to expect and what times to expect them. So ideally, we want to be able to communicate as transparently as possible with the town. Okay.
And anything that I can do to help that, whether it be a letter from our production company or knocking on doors, you know, I'm happy to do it all. So whatever you guys need from me to help you as you're helping me, please don't hesitate to ask.
Are there any other questions or about the fireworks in particular before we let him go through the rest of the schedule? Corey.
Yeah, just if you could, Chris, wasn't following, my apologies if you said it, but what were the hours of the fireworks exactly that you said it's going to be ongoing? So
for that night, it would be sporadically between 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. It would be tough for me to kind of pigeonhole a particular time, because as we get one shot, which is impossible to predict, we will move on to the next shot. Some shots will involve fireworks, some shots won't. So it's the kind of thing where I could certainly keep someone up to date on the night if that helps anyone, whether it be police and fire, which we'll have there anyway. But as far as like 8:01, we're going to fire from 8:01 to 8:13. I can't in good conscience say that. That's just not the way that it works when we're filming. When we finish, we move on, and sometimes we need them, sometimes we don't. It's kind of at the discretion of the director, the weather, any number of things can come into play. So the most honest thing I could say is between 6 and 12, we would have sporadic firing. No more than
how much
necessary.
would it be? Yeah, I mean, how much would it be an inconvenience to maybe put a cap at 11 o'clock, just to kind of just give residents that are trying to turn in for the night a little bit of peace and quiet?
That is certainly reasonable. We do have requests moving forward on different nights that obviously, you know, we're going to ask for later than that. And it may be a kind of thing where, you know, you guys can't officially sign off on it until you hear it or see it. I don't know. Or if it could be signed off on at all, you guys tell me. All I could do is make the requests. 11 a.m. is not unreasonable since we're looking to finish at 12. I think we could probably get all our fireworks done by 11, but we will have requests going down the line that that would want to go later. And you guys just let us know if that's doable or not, I guess, as we move forward. Oh, you know what? As I look at this, yes. I mean, they were asking to do it from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on this night. Now that I'm looking at it, you know, I could see what could be. So the sun goes down at what, 8:30? Probably dark around what, 9? So that would give us from 9 to 11 to do it. I mean, it's tough. It's your guys' town. If you're telling me that we can't fire it beyond 11, then I'm just going to have to figure out a way, you know, have our producers figure out a way to make that happen. If there's any, yeah, you guys go ahead.
Yeah, does anyone else have an opinion on this? Diane, go ahead.
Just more or less a question to Chris Senior, our town manager, or anybody else that knows. Does the abutters know? Have we been in touch with like the fishing fleet during the day to know that there's activity, or any of the general residents in town, other than what they might have read in the Mariner?
That's a good question.
And whether it's worth just being I mean, I'm obviously sensitive to the neighbors, but at the same time, I think it's more important just to get out the general information that there's going to be a film crew. People are usually relatively forgiving. So before we restrict it too much, I think it's just more important to get a general information out that these are days that there's going to be a film crew doing a, major motion picture filming, and it should be something we're excited about. And then if we start to get pushback.
I agree with that, Diane. I'm less worried about the hours and more worried about our ability to communicate them with the town. And I think that's more our job than yours, Chris. We need to make sure that the town and neighbors and abutters are all aware of this, but I also understand that filming is an art and you can't always be restrained to certain time limits. So I do get that and respect that. Jean.
So on a similar note, I mean, 2 a.m. is pretty late if it's like a firecracker waking people up, to be frank. But before Chris Senior goes and does anything, I guess what I would want to know is, because I realize this is an iterative process, and Chris Senior will get asked questions like, is this in fact the schedule? Because I know that there was some talk about changing the schedule. And so I guess my question to you, other Chris, is how firm are you on the schedule before we go out and start?
Yeah, we are firm in the sense that barring an act of God, which, unfortunately is a little bit more, like one of our actors gets sick or something happens that we need to completely rethink our entire schedule. Barring that, I don't see this shifting more than like an hour or two in either direction. And the only reason why it would even do that is because, and bear with me here as I try to explain it, what our filming schedule amounts to is all based upon union hours and union turnaround. So if we finish at X time one night or day, we can't start until X time the next day. So this is what we assume that we're going to do throughout that week. Say on Monday, there's a torrential rainstorm and it sets us back 4 hours. Well, that's going to change. It could potentially, it will affect the week. How much is difficult to say, because some of our work is overnight and some of our work is day, because God forbid we make it easy. That is not a wrinkle that we normally deal with. We generally either shoot during the day during the whole week, or we shoot during the night during the whole week. Here, we're kind of mix and matching that.
The firecrackers are just one night, right?
Negative. No, we do have a couple nights that we would want to do it.
Chris, I was sorry to interrupt, Jean. Why don't you run us through the rest of the schedule?
Sure, and then we can pick it. Absolutely.
Run us through the rest of Corey. Is that okay before your question, if he just runs us through the rest of it? Okay. Yeah, Chris, run us through the rest of the schedule and then we can see how many late nights I guess we're dealing with.
Very good. So that was Thursday, July 29th's work was the last time we talked about. So we'll go to Friday, the 30th. We will film from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. approximately. And that night we don't have, let me just hold on. Okay, yes, we do. From 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. is when we would like to launch our fireworks off from the shoreline of the property 49 Margin Street. We also have a prop gun that's going to be on set that night, where we will be test firing what's called New York loads, which are quarter load blanks. And our procedure for doing that is, before we even bring the gun anywhere, we hand it to the local police officer. They inspect it and confirm that it is what it is. And this is just for a test. We're going to actually use this gun for the scene a few days later, but they want to test the sound. They want to make sure the gun works. So that is something that will take place at some point between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Again, not loud. I try to explain what a quarter load blank sounds like. It's probably going to be, about a fraction of the sound as the small firecracker. It's not something that you would really hear beyond, I think, 100-foot radius. And so that test would take place sometime between 6 and 8. We are asking to fire the fireworks between 8 and 3 a.m. and it is sporadic. It's never continuous, but that was the time frame that I was given. And that would be our work for that night, hopefully wrapping up sometime around 8 a.m. That would bring us to the weekend. We're not doing anything, obviously. Monday, we're a daytime shoot, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. is approximate. No guns, no explosions, no firecrackers, no nothing. Regular, normal day of filming, all taking place on 49 Margin. Tuesday, we have a little mixture of day and night. We would start roughly 12 p.m., shoot till roughly 2 a.m. This is the night that we would have the prop gun. I am waiting for them to tell me around roughly what time they would use it, but it is for a night scene. So I would, estimate anytime from 9 o'clock till 2 a.m. they would use it. There are no fireworks being fired on this night. Let's see, Wednesday, August 4th, we go back into full night, 6 p.m. start, 8 a.m. finish. We are asking if we can shoot off occasional fireworks from the same shoreline on the property from the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. These are going to be a mixture of plate shots where we kind of fake the fireworks hitting. That's what visual effects will come in and paint in later. And other shots of the fireworks, again, just launching. That's the practical part. That's the part that we want to sell to the audience. That will be taking place, yes, from the shore and from the dock, all from the property. And that finishes up our Wednesday. And that actually finishes up the fireworks. The remaining Friday and Thursday are night shoots, 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. So to be clear, we're looking for fireworks on Wednesday, August 4th. We are looking to do it on Wednesday, Friday, and Thursday. So Thursday the 29th, Friday the 30th, and then Wednesday the 4th would be our 3 nights of fireworks. And,
Okay.
I understand how 4 a.m., 3 a.m., those are big asks. I can go back and see if anything can be done to tighten that up, at the very least on my part. If you want to say, absolutely, it can't go beyond this time, let me know, and we'll have to rethink it. Want everybody to be comfortable with it. I don't want to undersell it. At the same time, I don't want to oversell it. It's everyone's telling me it's going to be very low impact, but what they think low impact is and what a neighbor who's trying to sleep thinks low impact is, they may be different. I don't have any reason to doubt them, but at the same time, I don't want to, I don't want to promise, I can't promise anything having not heard it. So I think the video will be helpful in kind of gauging exactly what this will be. But beyond that, what I have outlined is what we're asking for. And, I defer to you guys as to what you will allow.
Thank you, Chris. And again, we are very excited you're interested in the town, and this is a really cool thing to have happen in our town. We are trying to figure out a way to make it happen too, just without being disruptive to our residents. And I appreciate your honesty here because it is hard to tell, and I think you are being as honest as possible. I also will say I have spoken with Chief Quigley and know that there has been a liaison assigned with Cohasset Police just to be monitoring the situation. They have a liaison there, and I do trust that Cohasset Police is also on top of this in terms of safety issues and all of that stuff. Corey.
And I was told by my special effects coordinator that all the permits were filed today with the fire department as well. So all that should be in. And if you guys haven't seen it already, you'll be seeing it soon.
I trust we will see those soon. Corey and then Diane.
Yeah, I do want to kind of shift my mode here to excitement. This is great. I think the residents are largely going to be excited. So apologies if we come across a little hesitant on stuff.
It's reasonable. I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
You said something in the beginning, which I really think would go a long way, which is maybe just do some sort of outreach yourselves. The town has limited resources. If it's possible to put what you just told us into a pamphlet and drop it off, just in the mailboxes of that neighborhood in the next, let's say, week, I think that would be huge. To just say, hey, we're in town, we're doing this, and if you have any questions, you can deal with that. And then I would also say that if there are any changes to the schedule, you use the liaison with the Cohasset Police Department. The Cohasset Police Department has a great Twitter account, so if you need to move fireworks from Wednesday to Thursday, let the police department know, and they can tweet out, listen, this has been shifted. I think that'd be a great way to just communicate. So 1, pamphlet to the butters, 2, any changes goes through CPD. And then finally, I want to be excited about this. I would probably suggest that we put a cap of maybe 2 a.m. on fireworks. to give you guys a really good thing. I think the 3 a.m. is kind of like, that's really in the middle of the night. So if that's, I mean, that's kind of where I feel is like, okay, you know, it's late, but it's not crazy. So thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Corey. And maybe Chris, you and I could even do a little video to send out to social media or get something just to kind of really generate the excitement, because this is exciting. And I will say, without getting any particular residents in trouble, the amount of fireworks that got lit off over July 4th weekend in town that I could hear throughout the whole night and see out my window, I'm not entirely sure residents are going to be that bothered by this.
And that was a one point that my special effects
I mean,
coordinator did want to hammer home. Is like, just make
Yeah.
sure they realize they're probably thinking 4th of July,
Right?
fireworks display, or whatever it is that they just saw. And that's reasonable to think that a
Yep.
studio with resources is going to come in and do that. And you know what? I'll even be more honest. If it sold it, if we could film it in the sky practically, and it was believable, we would be asking you to do that. But the reality is it's just not. So the firing them off, that's a close-up shot. To see them in the sky, that's all going to be special effects, because you can't get that close and it's not going to look as good.
I really don't think most residents are going to be bothered by this. I don't. I think it's exciting. I think just paying attention to how excited people have been acting, hearing that a movie's being filmed in town, I think this is great. I don't necessarily care about the 2 a.m. cap. Corey, I think that you make a good point on that, though. So I would like to hear if the board would prefer that, because I'm willing to vote for that, but I don't necessarily think we need to cap the times. Diane?
I was going to say 2 things, one of which is I last night got awoken with a fireworks display. It was probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, just some leftovers from the 4th of July. So I agree. I think that the opportunity, I think people are going to be very excited about it. Did you say that there's some kind of video that you could share about what these close proximity noises would sound like? I mean, would that be at all?
There's a video that's going to be, they're going to make a video and test it to send to the producers and directors so they have an idea. I'm happy to get that video and share it with you guys. What I need to decipher from my special effects coordinator is, how is this audio actually going to be captured, and is it a realistic representation?
And
I feel like
you
it
know,
would be if they're giving it to the producers and director as you know, this is what it'll be. I just don't see how. I just need him to walk me through it a little bit. But whatever that video is, I'm happy to share it once.
Yeah, and from our point of view, I don't know that that's going to change anything. So
no, it's just something else we can offer you, is like an example.
But I do agree with Corey that it might be nice to just do a flyer and you know, put it out sort of around the harbor area, or where the noises might be, and just you know, help promote it as well. So
absolutely.
In terms of the timing, you know, I could go either way. I think maybe it does make sense to just set a, like, you know, they asked for 3, we gave them 2. but yeah.
Yeah, and we can even post a copy of that pamphlet on social media too, Diane. I think that's a really good point. But I also will say I do think we need to take a vote on this tonight, because if you look at the dates, you want to start filming on the 29th. Our next meeting, besides goal setting, isn't till the 27th. I don't want to put you at risk, Chris, for us voting against this 2 days before you're supposed to start filming. You know, and not that I think we would, but you know, I do think it would probably be smart to make a decision tonight without seeing that video. But putting that video out on social media and sending it out to the town could, as kind of a warning, I think could also be helpful. Jack, and then I don't know if I saw Jean's hand.
I'm prepared to make the motion if I know the form of the motion.
Jean, hold on, hold that thought, Jack. Let me just make sure Jean doesn't have another question. Hold on, Jean, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the people who aren't, you know, toddler hours like myself, well, my kids are a little older, you know, there's not really a big difference between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. at the end of the day.
Fair point.
But I do think some community outreach would help sort of soothe that issue. And I know I keep going back to this, Chris, but I'm going to keep going back to it. When the Witches of Eastwick came, and I have this on good authority, what they did in the community, because there was limited, like the community was really involved in this. And I know you're going to be here on a shorter timeline than they were, so no pressure. But they had a baseball game with the cast and the crew. You know, they did like a little event, because they couldn't really incorporate people necessarily into the movie, although they had a huge casting call. So they did like, just something that people could show up at, even like driving past Sandy Beach, waving, saying hi, because everyone's really excited. And maybe you just go a little slower near the neighborhood that's going to be impacted. Just, again, thinking out loud, thinking creatively, because people are really excited. And the weekend is a nice place to be in Cohasset, just
This
saying.
is true. This is true. Well, this is something I could talk to the producers about. I don't know that we could do anything on that level of a game, but maybe there's something where we can do to thank the town. Like, I don't know if you guys have any kind of events that maybe we could have some food trucks come by or something, some manner, some way that we can say thank you seems to me the least that we can do. Just trying to figure out what that is and when we could do it. If there is a particular event, something coming up involving the town that you guys have on your calendar, let us know, and be happy to make a contribution in some way.
Thank you for that, Chris and Jean. I think it makes a really good point. Any way we can involve the community without hurting your filming schedule could be really cool. So Chris, you and I maybe can be in touch
Sure.
the next couple weeks about that.
I'm certainly open to any suggestions. Should you guys think of anything, let me know.
All right. So it seems like we're a little unsure what to do about a 2 a.m. cap or not. Jack, I do think you maybe can make a motion just for proceeding with the schedule presented for this production company from July 29th through August 6th.
Okay, I move that we proceed with the schedule for the production as presented, with the understanding that should it be possible to move it to 2 a.m., we would recommend that.
Okay. Do we have a second? Corey, go ahead.
Can I also add the stipulation that there will be a pamphlet outreach program
Yes.
for the neighbors?
Yeah, with a pamphlet outreach.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. A roll call vote starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Haley Dipple, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye. All right, thank you, Chris. So really that's a
Thank you guys
suggestion
very
to be done by 2 a.m., but we understand if things, go a little bit over. But Chris, you and I can be in touch in the next few days about getting the pamphlet together and getting things going for outreach.
And for my part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my producers it is a 2 a.m. cap.
Okay.
So they're going to lose their minds for 30 seconds, but it's going to make them rethink. And then I could very easily see them coming back to me and say, oh, could we have 3 a.m. this night? Or we could do it from 12 a.m. this night if we could, so these things may come up. But,
right. And honestly,
let's keep talking about it.
I was going to say, we would love even just maybe a more brief update from you at our meeting on the 27th, right before filming, just to kind of hammer out any final details, if you can schedule that.
Sure, that'd be great.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Thanks
all.
so
Have a good
much.
night.
Very exciting. It's like Witches of Eastwick, but in 2021. I can't wait. All right. So we are done with all of our licenses, permits, and events. Moving on to our field use next steps. I know this might have been a little bit of confusing of a agenda line, but this is to come back to address the important issues of field use in general in our town, which I'm going to have Jean talk about in a minute, because I think we've had a very productive couple meetings about our field use study and field use potential, and also circling back on the conversation specifically we had with CYBSA and the possible baseball lights. But obviously that conversation fits into this broader discussion about fields and what the town needs. So I want to first just let Jean give a quick update for a minute, because I know you met on this earlier, Jean, and would love for you to update the town on the progress being made with the field study and field use in general.
Sure. So we had, and just by way of background, as folks probably know, we had a article passed at town meeting that allocated $40,000 for a field and tennis court study. And so following that, we've been talking about what should the bid or RFP be in terms of what specifically we're asking for, because it can be a range of different things and there isn't necessarily any decision made on that. But we had our first meeting this morning with the rec department, schools, our procurement officer, and some folks from facilities to just help begin to get some information in the door. And without going into huge detail, the discussion covered what are in fact the needs of the town. What are we, what's some framework of what we might be asking this field consultant to do vis-a-vis the field study? Are we looking at recommendations with our existing fields? Which, you know, I'm a strong advocate that it goes beyond that, right? We have needs that may go beyond, that likely do go beyond our existing fields and tennis courts. And so we need to consider, and really this is the benefit of hiring a consultant, because we think we might be able to, you know, do a capital plan or maintenance plan for our existing fields. It really goes to the question of how do we better think through not only the field space for our existing plans, but also what are the needs we need to address, and then where and how do we address that, whether it's tennis courts, whether it's baseball, whether it's soccer and lacrosse. And so long story short, you know, a lot of discussion on those points with no decisions made. And the next steps, because this is a multifaceted process, the next steps are in essence that there are going to be folks reaching out from our rec and schools, talking with various community stakeholders, including our youth sports, our school sports. So, you know, we have, for example, CYBSA, which runs its program, and then we have our school programs. And so, you know, reaching out to the various stakeholders that are out there to begin getting a sense of what they are saying their needs are, looking at the schedules over the years in terms of what's being used vis-a-vis the fields, starting to look at various locations that may be opportunities, maybe being the operative word. And from that standpoint, we're going to reach out, the town is going to do some work on its own, trying to figure out, for example, issues relating to wetlands and where there are boundaries, because that's obviously going to influence what you can, like what's even on the table. There may be stuff that's just immediately off the table, and it's really not even worthwhile to, frankly, hire someone to do work that we can figure out on our own, right? And so there's going to be some fact gathering too from more of a land/environmental standpoint in terms of where there may be opportunities that are available there. And so those are sort of the next steps. And then the schools themselves, you know, that's another piece of the puzzle in terms of talking with the schools with respect to, there is an ongoing, you know, school facilities committee we're going to talk about later, but they are a piece of the puzzle in terms of figuring out sort of long range planning, you know, sort of being mindful of spending a lot of time and money doing something that may be part of a, you know, a different school plan out there that we need to think through and just be considerate of. And so, though it really, right now, it's in the fact gathering stage, but a part of what we're trying to do is gather as much information internally on our own so we can really get a lot of bang for our buck in terms of whichever field consultant we hire to think through, you know, where to go. So we're trying to do some of the needs analysis, a preliminary one up front, preliminary analysis of the land that may be available just from a land use standpoint, and, you know, talking with the schools where there may be, you know, some land that's just simply off the table and it is what it is. So that's where we are, and we plan to gather the data and then regroup in 2 weeks and then start thinking about how to involve more community stakeholders too. But it's a part of this is just fact gathering right now.
Thank you, Jean, for that. And also, I really want to thank all of the energy in town and people in town who've reached out to us too on this issue, because it really has spurred these conversations that are much needed. And the problem is that, you know, as many of us can see, is that a lot of these things are related to each other, right? Our field facilities are very much related to our school facilities, and it's all inextricably intertwined, and being able to flesh this out a little more is really helpful. I also know that this is a really important issue for a lot of people in town, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, all of us individually as board members on this. And, we were thinking, this could be an opportunity to have a community discussion brainstorming session in the next month. Possibly one date that was thrown out is doing the community discussion on this at the senior center on Monday, July 26th. So in a couple of weeks, that's one option, or we could push it to one of the first couple of weeks in August. We would make it a posted meeting where we could all be there as a board, but really let everyone in the community be invited, maybe hash things out, figure out ways that we can come to some agreements on things. I think that this is an issue that deserves more than just an agenda item on our regular select board meetings. I feel like we need some community meetings and discussions to figure out a way to move forward on this, because there is so much excitement and a lot of feedback from a lot of different residents in town. So thank you for that, Jean. I saw Jack's hand first and then Diane's, and then I'll let Jean comment again. Jack, what do you think?
Well, I think, thank you, Jean, for that good work. I've also spent a lot of time speaking with some of the various factions, and we all know the kind of the spark that ignited this has been the lighting proposal. But what I think the good thing is that has really sparked the larger discussion of our overall fields. And the most important thing, I think, is to get that fact finding done, to get so we're really talking about what are the potential resources, athletic field resources for all of our kids and all of the different competing sports. This is hard to make a decision when you don't have all the facts, or a reasonable amount of all the facts of what is possible. I know the emotions are high, and people feel very strongly on either side. However, I will say that in some of the discussions that I have had, that I think there's a recognition on all parties that somehow we in Cohasset have the capacity of coming together, because we all love this town. So I think having that meeting is a very, very good idea. But I would say that before we have that meeting, that we should have the considerable town resources out there with a consultant, so we have some hard facts on the table, because otherwise we run the risk of a meeting in which doesn't come to any conclusions, but inflames people and they retreat into their respective corners, because we want to avoid that. Good news is, in talking to a number of people, they all recognize that we need to work together to solve this problem. So there is hope.
Jack, I think that's well said, and I think you make a really good point. The purpose of this meeting, or more than one meeting for all we know, is not to try to make it be a back and forth fighting between residents. We want it to be productive, figure out ways we can find maybe points of agreement on certain issues, because I think they are there. So I think you make a good point. We don't want this meeting to turn into just a battle in the town.
Yeah.
That would not be the purpose of it. And you're right, it has to be structured so it won't be that way. Diane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. As much as for the last couple of months, I've said that, this a general community kind of assessment of needs is needed. And I always thought of it being a meeting, but to Jack's point, I think that's something that would probably need to get facilitated. So, maybe what happens is to continue the meetings like that took place today. I also think that part of kind of a needs assessment is also kind of the next step is governance, oversight, kind of management, because the select board, the reason we got onto this discussion earlier was because we own we have control over the land, if you will. But most of the sports facilities in town are either run and scheduled through rec or through the schools. And so we're usually out of this picture. The ball fields are unique because they're just ball fields. So I think they have pretty much full scheduling. So I think that just looking at that and making sure that rec and schools are involved in every single conversation, so that there's no we're not leaving anything out. And I think governance ultimately, how are we going to manage this? Let's say we build a sports complex, like where's this all going to funnel through, and what's the best way to be fair to all of our residents. And so anyway, great work. And I'm really glad we're moving this ball upfield.
Thank you, Diane. Jean?
Yeah, and just to be perfectly clear, the purpose of the meeting we did and the sort of preliminary work that we're doing is to figure out the scope of services to hire the consultant. Hingham did this. They did a field study. They put an RFP out there. You can Google it and find it. And what happened was the consultant comes in and they coordinate and work with the field study working group, which to Diane's point has, for example, rec commission on it, schools, the various sports partnerships that are out there that are already heavily invested in various fields, maintaining and paying for the fields too, on a private nature. Those groups all have a seat at the table, and it took several stakeholder meetings in order to, do the needs analysis, while doing the facility inventory, while doing the more technical work in terms of a conditions analysis from, like an environmental and a drainage standpoint. And so I don't think that this is necessarily going to be a quick process, just because it is involved if you're going to do it right. And I also think it's an expensive process too, when you're talking about upgrading a field or building new tennis courts. New tennis courts could cost $1 million for a variety of tennis courts, not even including the pickleball courts, right? And so we're not talking about insignificant sums. And so a part of this too is, putting everything on the table and then figuring out not only the field needs, but also ultimately, funding proposals, et cetera, which is going to be crucial to making it actually successful and looking at existing money that may be there that we can work in a creative way with. And so again, I think that this is going to be a pretty involved process. And right now we are literally just at the step one, not even maybe step one, of trying to figure out the scope of services so we can get a consultant that will be able to help efficiently and timely deliver these services, but that's still going to take some time.
That's well said, Jean. Jack, is your hand up again?
I didn't put it down, but if you want, I can speak more.
I didn't know if you had a follow-up about
I just wondering, just the offers out there.
And I understand, and we understand the frustration of residents in town that I get that this seems very complicated, and it is complicated, but we really do care about this, and we want to move this forward, and we want our town to have better facilities. And, we are trying to move this along as quickly as possible without sacrificing the well-being of the town or making a decision that could end up hurting the well-being of the town. So I really want to echo to everyone watching tonight. We are very passionate about this, and we care about this, and we're trying to figure out how to move the process along without jeopardizing the process, if that makes sense. It sounds like maybe we wait a little bit before we do our first community meeting about this. I'm 100% set on knowing we need some of these community meetings or people can give input. But Jean, based on when your next meeting is scheduled for and the next meetings for this committee and getting all the stakeholders involved, I would like to hear your opinion on when you think it would be good to maybe think about this first community, meeting that we have.
So like I said, over the next 2 weeks, folks are sort of pulling in information, and that includes getting community input, right? That includes going to the different groups and the respective leaders of those groups to obtain information from them in terms of field and needs, et cetera. And so there is community input happening just in, like a sort of one-on-one way. I think once that information comes in the door, and then, we have a chance to regroup, let's just, put the information together. I think then maybe it might make sense to have something like that in, maybe early August.
Okay.
And I think, and maybe this is a segue to the next issue, but I think the July 26th meeting, that might be a better use of time to address the lights issue, which is separate, but.
It's separate, but not. That's the yeah.
Maybe.
So, okay, so you're suggesting this community meeting in general happen in early August, but are you saying you think there needs to be a separate meeting about just the lights specifically?
I think there's sufficient interest. Yeah, I thought that, CYBSA's proposal, for example, I don't think is going to be linked to the outcome of a field study that could take a significant amount of time in the future to work through. Like Hingham, it took, I think, a year.
No, I know it does take a long time. Diane?
I don't want to belabor anything, but I do think it might be important, Chris Senior, if you could, only because there was another Chris earlier, if maybe we could start collecting and put a file up that the public has access to, because Jean mentioned the Hingham study, and in March and April, I pulled a lot of studies that I've seen from other towns where they went, sometimes they did $100,000 study that was really comprehensive. Other times they bit off little things. So if we could start collating that. And I know about a year ago, I was working with Michelle Leary and a few others on looking at next steps for the tennis courts, and then maybe including in that file access to just information on recs, the rec commissions, charge and all of this, just kind of collating a bunch of stuff so that people have resources they can look at and we can add to as this conversation moves forward.
I think that's a really good point, Diane. And again, I do want to have a productive community meeting on this. And I also want to make sure that it's facilitated in a way where it doesn't just turn into people yelling at each other or fighting that's not productive. I think that Jack made that really important point. So how do we all feel about a possible meeting about the lights on Monday, the 26th, if we can figure out a format that can be productive? I mean, it wouldn't be an official select board vote because it wouldn't be a select board meeting at that point, but I think it's partially related to the rest this field study, but I also would like to hear some updates on possible proposals with what CYBSA has come to figure out since we last spoke with them. Jean and then Diane, I saw both your hands again.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of, back and forth in the interim and work being done on the lights issue. And I think that it would make sense to, reach out to the neighbors and make sure they're aware of that time. And from CYBSA standpoint, understand their thinking in terms of specifically what their proposal is, including as to light height.
Right.
And then with respect to the concerns that were referenced earlier, what their proposal is in terms of addressing some of those concerns, whether it's the light or the parking, or essentially the intensification of use. Essentially have something that is akin to what the planning board routinely does. Which is, just sort of step through the various issues.
Yep.
And see if, there are places that we can at least narrow down and figure out what the proposal is on the table. And then I think at a certain point in early August, the select board should simply vote on it, because I just don't think the facts are going to be changing much more. I mean, the only thing that will be changing is baseball season will be over for this year.
Right. And again, we do need a specific proposal to vote on, right? Like we haven't had that to vote on yet. So before we take a vote, we would need to have the proposal specifics, like you said, Jean. And I do know that some work has been done on that. Diane and then Jack.
Just, I think before we have that, and maybe we can have all this information by the July 26th meeting, one of the reasons we haven't had that discussion yet is because we're in the process of drafting an operating agreement. And also I think the board will need to understand, does this have to go through town procurement? Is it a gift acceptance situation? So not only do we need to understand what the actual needs are, the proposal from CYBSA, but we need to understand the kind of legal structural, does it have to go through zoning? You know, we need all of that. And I think the operating agreement was the only thing that has kind of slowed this discussion up thus far. So I would, you know, I wouldn't want to have this discussion until we had all those answers.
Right. And that's a good point, Diane. And this is something we need to ask council about. I know for me, I was a little confused of how much of these proposal details would be in that operating agreement before we agreed to the operating agreement itself. So that is a very important question. All right, Jack, and then Corey.
Well, I think one of the things we need to be careful of is that I think we ought to give the parties an opportunity to basically say, maybe you should come to a compromise before anybody does a permanent vote, because then both parties don't know if they're going to win or lose the vote. They have to make a calculated decision on that. And my experience is when people are in that position, even if they think they're going to win, they may be inclined to work with the other party. And the other issue, and I hesitate to bring it up, but I am hearing from, not from the baseball people, but from other people who've been involved in a lot of youth activities and sailings and all kinds of things around town and parties that, you know, the parental drinking thing is coming up again. And we are hearing that with some people, not baseball, but I've heard from some people around town that they're hearing from parents who are concerned that, you know, what should be a youth activity, we're just seeing that. And I don't know how to deal with that. And I almost didn't bring it up, but I do think that the community at large needs to be aware that that is becoming an increasing, you know, issue across the whole town. And I'm not singling out anybody in particular.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Corey, what do you think? You've been quieter this discussion.
Well, I mean, you know, we started the conversation with the field use, and then we somehow at some point took a left-hand turn into scheduling a meeting about baseball lights. So I'm not quite sure whether that was, you know, an appropriate turn. However, you know, I think Diane said it pretty well, teed it off. There's some, you know, for the field light proposal to come back to the board, it needs to be ready. And, you know, we can put a date on this, but until it's ready, I mean, everyone said this. I mean, I was quiet, but everyone said this, you know, at the beginning of this, which is we don't want to have a meeting where people are just, you know, it's just emotions again. That wasn't productive. We don't want to do that again. We can't have a productive conversation about this until the proposal is done. And it's going to be done when it's going to be done. There is no, you know, we can put it July 21st, but I mean, you have governance issues. I mean, if this is something that is going to be given to the town as a gift, there are legal issues with that. There are issues about, you know, building prevailing wage and maintenance, you know, so there's questions there. There's legal questions. Our board has a fiduciary responsibility to follow the law of these things. So it's not just a, hey, this is great. We also have a responsibility to the residents about whether or not we give land back or the structure of this deal as whole. We need to answer those questions. We also need to answer the question about neighborhood buy-in. I don't think it's appropriate for us to have another public, you know, argument between neighbors and field space. You know, I love that we have a new member on the board and that, you know, you've got this passion. And I think you know, this needs to be handled, you know, in a very close manner, you know, bringing the neighbors together, answering these problems. And then, you know, what I'd like to see is, you know, my colleague bring, you know, when she thinks this is ready and this is all the answers have been found, then we can bring it up to a vote. If we do it beforehand, we're just, you know, our board can't approve something that's not ready. I mean, we just can't do that. So, you know, if it's ready in 2 weeks, great. I think there's a lot of questions between here and there, and we have to answer them before we do, you know, we take a vote.
No, and I agree, Corey. And again, the purpose of, I will say that was kind of my plan for field use, to start with the broader field facilities issues and then address the baseball issue, because I do know a proposal is going to be coming. So that was intentional to take that turn on my part. I'm torn about this because I guess technically if a proposal is officially ready on this specific issue in the next few weeks, we could just have that proposal presented as part of a regular board meeting as well. Right? I only want to have a separate community meeting at this point in the near future if we think it's going to be productive, if we think it's going to be helpful and not turn into, just citizens fighting with each other. So I only want to do this if we think it's going to be productive and helpful, but I'm torn about it because I guess I'm not entirely sure when the proposal officially will be ready for us to vote on. Maybe it's August, maybe it's later than that. I honestly don't know. I know work's been done on it, but I'm not sure. Jean?
Well, a part of the issue is we control the readiness. The town controls the readiness. The operating agreement is in our court, quite literally, right? Like since March, there's been a question about, do we have a contract? And then if not, what do we do from there? And so the contract is literally with us, or the operating agreement. It's not done. It hasn't been done. And so we are the delay at this point in terms of the legal issues with respect to the operating agreement, figuring out what we need to do on the prevailing wage issue, to the extent there even is one, which it's not clear, frankly, that there is one based on what I understand. And so we, the town, need to get our ducks in a row in order to have them make that serious proposal. And so I think a part of what we need to do, whether it's this community meeting or just a select board meeting, is to focus on this and to, get an operating agreement in place and then make a decision in the context of that operating agreement. What we do about the lights, because the operating agreement could very well address that and probably should. And so I do think that it's on us, and we're the delay at this point in large part.
Okay, I guess for me, and hold on, Jack, I'm a little confused of how many details we need from this tentative proposal before we can create the operating agreement. I agree with you. We have to get an operating agreement done. For me, I'm a little confused legally of how much of the proposal details we need to put into the operating agreement, if that makes sense, Jean. And that might be a question for our council. But I was under the impression that we needed more details from a proposal to then put in the operating agreement before we could create it. Chris, I know you've had a couple discussions about this. If you want to weigh in real quick about that. I'm honestly not sure legally of how much more of the proposal we need for the operating agreement. It's like a chicken egg thing in my head right now. So I genuinely don't know. I think you make a good point. It's our responsibility as a town to get this operating agreement done. I don't know if we need more of the proposal before we can do that. Hi, Chris. Help us out, Chris.
I'll do the best to unscramble. So that you've had a lot of good conversation tonight. I think that, again, depending on how it's structured, there is still some input from the community, as Jean put it, in kind of a planning setting, just to kind of work through some of these as the final draft of this is being concluded by council's office. So that could kind of infuse. So it's kind of both, right? It's chicken and egg, I guess. So I think there's still some more input from the community and from the proposal to kind of work into an agreement than that you all can then talk about. And I think that can happen over the next few weeks. And again, the style and scope of a meeting, I think, is really up to all of you to tell us, me and other staff, how you want to structure something. We can do whatever you like, or you can even just have a small community group informally, however you'd like to pull that off. And again, as there are conversations even a few weeks ago with this board talked about making sure we had safety for kids to cross the street there, right? That cross around Main Street. That's a very surmountable issue, but it's something that that needs to be checked off in the box, and parking, and the impact on the community, and also what a scope might look like in terms of use, right? I mean, the lights open up new opportunities for use, and the question is, what is that ask, I guess, right? So I think there's room to fill in some blanks, and anything we can do to help facilitate getting those blanks filled in, so you can all have a a good conversation, we're available to do. So go ahead.
Chris, just to clarify, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, the way I see the process playing out is there's going to be an operating agreement that will be needed just regardless of what happens with the lights, right? Because we need that. And then in the context of once we get that operating agreement, simultaneously, we should be on this track of figuring out, what the proposal is in terms of use with respect to months, days, time, height, and whatever else we want to add in there that then gets incorporated into that agreement. And even then there might be additional steps that we need to consider if we, the town, are the applicant with respect to any, like, let's say we have to go to the building inspector to get a permit, for example, which we've talked about in terms of if we, depending on how the operating agreement turns out, we would have to be in that position and we need to know exactly what we need to do. But to me, before, we start getting to all those brass tacks, which I think does fall on the town because we own the land, sort of backing up, like what's the substance of where this proposal is, because, if, the board says absolutely no lights, then the operating agreement, the discussion becomes very different at the end of the day. Or if the board says, hey, we want to, see if we can facilitate a compromise through this community discussion, Carrie, that you were talking about, let's sort of lay the different issues out there, see if there's any room for a compromise and sort of, to Jack's point, sort of stand back and, help facilitate that to see, but we still have to be involved because if we're going to be the applicant, we need to make sure that whatever compromise is reached is in fact feasible, including vis-a-vis an operating agreement. And so, unfortunately, it's not straightforward, but we still have to, keep things running on various tracks.
No, I agree.
Well-
Jean. I think we can actually probably get a lot more information with the stakeholders in terms of how soon we are to having a proposal ready now in this next week and maybe find that out first. Jack?
Well, it occurs to me a couple of facts. One is very helpful. There's no way they're going to have time to get anything done immediately, so we have time for implementation, whichever way it goes. I do think that we can craft an operating agreement, a durable underlying operating agreement that allows the town to go forward and manage this, and that gives us the structure. And that, I think, is doable. To Jean's point, that we have the structure. I think we can do that. We just have to make sure that it's a durable structure that does not constrain further usage, no matter how it may come. I mean, the baseball people may prevail in their vote. They may not. They may, and the neighbors may win. They may not. There's other stakeholders also involved. It's not just these two groups. But there may be something that says this is a way out, but we can work on the durable thing. To Jean's point, I think we can work on the durable structure right now.
Jack,
so we have that done, and then we can figure out the other one down the line.
I agree with you. Okay, here's how I think we should play this. I think that we need to work on the operating agreement in the next 2 weeks before our next meeting on the 27th, and also figure out how close CYBSA might be to crafting a proposal, and then possibly schedule this type of community meeting for maybe in the first couple weeks of August. I'm feeling like Monday the 26th is going to be too soon based on what we need to accomplish, but I do think that meeting needs to happen soon. Jack, are you shaking your head? No, I can't tell.
No.
Okay, so I would say that we need to have this on our agenda again for the July 27th meeting, and then hopefully be able to get a time scheduled for some type of community update brainstorming session that will be productive for as soon as we can in August. Does that sound okay, Corey?
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
I just, we burned, a lot of time on this, and, we had a 10-minute slot. And I think that's partially because, it's just not ready. And I want to say this publicly because, people have changed my words multiple times for convenience purposes. If there's a proposal that comes, if I see a proposal that has these questions answered, that is thoroughly thought through, that, has neighborhood buy-in, it gets my vote. I mean, I'm in support of a proposal that, and I think my colleagues have said the same thing, so, and I will look to my colleague Jean here. I mean, if you feel that your proposal is ready and you want to, I would like to hear that from you to say, yeah, we've done this work, it's ready to go. I don't want us to spend another couple hours going in circles. We've got a lot of stuff to do as this board. This is one of those things. I think this is handled better, one or two members, really workshop this. And when it's ready to go, you come in front, and then we can all go, this was great. What a nice work product. Let's get behind it and let's do it. That's how I think we should work this.
Diane.
Just, and I'm not going to belabor it. I agree with everything Corey just said. The one question I have is this community meeting, is this specific to, because I think when we first started this conversation, it was a community meeting with all the various sports and field uses. Are we now talking that same kind of a community meeting, or are we talking baseball? Because, again, any kind of upgrades to any town land, whether it's a boat dock or a soccer field or a baseball field, impacts every other possible use for that. So that's just something that we have to be mindful of, no matter how this conversation rolls out.
No, that's a good point. In my head, I was thinking we'd actually have more than one meeting, one more broadly about all of this, once the committee that Jean had a meeting for today has made a little bit more progress. I was assuming there would be 2 separate meetings at least on this issue. So I think that we need multiple ones, in my opinion. I never thought it would just be one. I was always thinking that this is, we're lighting the fire for these community meetings to start about these issues. But it's
May I
really
suggest in the like with Corey,
really
blah, 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 blah. that right now that we do have a consensus that we need to structure the basic meeting. So let's move on that, and the other stuff, we can do that. And nothing stops the baseball people or anybody other group in town from putting together a proposal and bringing it to the select board. They have that right. And if they wish to, I welcome that. But for now, for our business, let's get that structure
going. Need
going.
to move on. Okay. This is going back on our agenda for the meeting on the 27th. We were doing so well being ahead of schedule the first hour, and here we are. But everyone has given very thoughtful comments here, and I know that it shows how much we care. At least I hope it does. So to be continued. I actually am wondering if we maybe could flip our next 2 agenda items. I know we have one person for an interview for Housing Authority here waiting, and I'm not sure I want to keep her waiting much longer. And so would we all mind flipping those 2 and moving on to the Housing Authority resident interview to get that done? And then we can go back to.
Sure. I'll move amending the agenda to take up the Housing Authority interview at 8:34.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote starting with Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Ravens, aye.
Jean.
Jean Haley Dipple, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye. Okay. Housing Authority interviews. We have 3 applicants, but only one was able to make it tonight. So we're going to finish the other 2 at our next meeting, but I believe we have 1 applicant coming tonight. Virginia should be here if we can get you promoted. Oh. Okay, wait, now we don't see her. Okay. Our 1 applicant is now not showing up, so that might have been a waste of a motion.
Is she under a different, I mean, I know there's something here that says director. I don't know if that's, was there something, I didn't see anybody named Virginia in the audience before.
And there's a Donna in the audience. That might be Donna McGee, who's on the Housing Authority.
All right, let's try one of these. Tracy.
Okay, well, let's give it a chair. They can both talk now. Director, well,
Hello.
I miss in-person meetings.
yes, are Donna our director? Either one or both of you here for this interview?
Yes.
I was here to observe. I'm the director.
Okay, so is Donna the interviewee?
No,
I believe our interviewee is named Virginia, but
Correct.
I know she might have been having some technical difficulties. Okay,
all right, then.
Like Diane said, we miss in-person meetings where I was just trying out of respect for her time to make this easier, but we might have to have all of our housing authority interviews at our next meeting earlier on the agenda.
Great idea.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh, hello?
Oh.
Yes, I'm here.
Is this Virginia?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Virginia. Okay.
Hello. Sorry,
All
we
right.
had a little trouble here.
Nope. That's okay. Thank you.
We old people, you know.
I'm sorry for making you wait, Virginia. I know
That's quite all right.
we appreciate your interest in the Housing Authority, and we want to welcome you to the select board tonight. And again, this is an important position. There are 3 applicants for it for one slot, and we really just wanted to have you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and why you're interested in this position.
Sure. I actually have served on the housing board for 3.5 years before a temporary move to California. So I'm very familiar with the role of a board member, and I did it while I was a tenant, and that was a great learning experience too. I'm very interested in serving again. I think I have some good ideas, and my professional background, I've always worked with boards and consultants and others in a kind of a collaborative atmosphere. And I think I have some pretty good ideas of how to work as a board member within the restrictions of the board and also the potentials, and work with tenants, not getting between tenants and management on individual issues, because that's not the role of the board, but to basically do a lot of listening and then a lot of investigation, trying to discover things that are, say, less common problems, or issues or opportunities for tenants. And then doing something like surveys so the tenants can, and we did one of those before, actually, it was pretty successful. So the tenants can express opinions anonymously and bring some consensus findings to the board about issues that are shared in the community, basically trying to also work back to tenants to help them understand the structure of the organization in which they're living. What roles the state plays, what roles management plays, what roles the board plays, so that they have a better understanding of how they can be effective in presenting their issues.
Okay. Thank you very much. I see one hand from a board member, Diane, and then Jean.
Hi, Jenny. I'm glad you moved back to town. I hated it when you left the last time. Thanks for all you do. I just want some clarification from you or whomever about what position we're filling. Is this a tenant representative position, or is this?
It is. I am a tenant again, and this is the tenant. I just happened to be a tenant the last time I was an elected.
That's right.
Board member. Yeah.
Yep.
If anybody just wants the 30-second clarification, the state changed the rules and created a separate tenant slot. And it took 2 years for that process to be complete to get and here it is. So what happens is that there's a process, the candidates come forward and the select board appoints. And that's where
I kind of remembered there was something like that. So thank you both for the clarification.
Yes, thank you for that. Jean.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was curious, based on what you were just talking about in terms of issues that tenants care about in the survey that was, you said, recently done. What, in your opinion, what are some of the sort of most important issues that you think tenants care about?
Oh, I think probably the conditions of apartments, upgrades, which we constantly try to make. But for example, I was talking to somebody recently and she said, you know, I've lived here 15 years and my carpet is really worn out and I don't know what to do about it. And you know, you kind of get thinking about these things. All right, this is probably a more common problem. How do we address issues for the long-term wonderful tenants who stay there, but whose apartments don't get upgraded because they happen to still be living in them, as opposed to empty apartments that get renovated and so forth, new kitchens, and they've been very diligent and good about doing renovations, but that's sort of an issue that you can begin to ask, you know, on a wider basis. Is this a common problem, and what, if anything, can we do about it?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Any other
Sure.
questions? All right. Well, we really appreciate your interest tonight. Thank you for coming to this interview. We will complete the interview process at our next meeting, and then we will take a vote as a board. And thank you for throwing your hat back into the ring.
Oh,
I know
thank you.
a lot of people don't do that. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we will finish the other two applicants' interviews at our next meeting. I think they both can make it then, and then hopefully make an appointment on that. Let's move back to our other agenda item, and then we'll come back to school facilities. So our intermunicipal agreement for animal control officer, Chief Quigley, is here to give us an explanation on that. Hi, Chief. Sorry for the delay, although I know you're used to this.
Yep, no problem at all. So I think Chris is going to weigh in here as well, but since 2016, we enjoyed an agreement, an intermunicipal agreement between the towns of Hull, Norwell, and Cohasset for regional animal control services. During the 4 years that we had that relationship, we came to realize that, you know, our core mission was real, and Hull took lead on that, by the way. You know, the animal control officer was a full-time employee of the town of Hull, and Cohasset and Norwell, you know, paid into that service. We basically contracted with the town of Hull, but it didn't take long to figure out that the core mission was really different in Hull than it is in Cohasset and Norwell. You know, Hull is more of a dog officer position, and their main issue is dogs on the beach and things of that nature. There are, you know, some one-offs having to do with wildlife, but they're not as consistent as what we experience here in Cohasset. So we lost our animal control officer in February. He transitioned to Weymouth PD. They've started a more robust natural resource unit in Weymouth, and they're not only handling animal control, but they're taking care of other environmental codes. So it caused us to take a look at things, and the more we talked to Hull, the more it seemed to make sense that, you know, Norwell's and Cohasset's needs are much different, and we you know, for instance, Norwell's a right to farm town. There's a lot of barns, you know, horses, you know, goats, everything else. And Cohasset has its share of barns as well. Barns have to be inspected. You have to be certified to conduct those inspections. And really, Hull, you know, didn't see the value in that, you know, as far as what their needs were. So to make a long story short, and not to belabor this, we're proposing to take lead on this. Hull is going to go off on their own because they just have disparate needs. Hull and Cohasset would like to join together with Cohasset taking the lead. Cohasset taking the lead with Norwell joining on. And there is some possible opportunities with other surrounding towns that are, you know, have an open mind to regionalizing further. So that's one of the things we're looking at. And I think if we move in this direction, it'd be a good thing for the town. And we've really just been patching things together for the last few months, especially with the spring and summer. You know, the officers have been handling as best they can the calls for animal control, but they're just, you know, quite frankly, they're just not equipped to handle some of these things. And in Hingham, we've actually worn out a welcome with Hingham, but they've been very, very good to us. And Officer Badger, Leslie Badger, she's the animal control officer in Hingham, and she's just really been a a savior during all this. So you know, we have to figure something out. We statutorily, we need an inspector of animals. We have animal bites that officers are, you know, trying to investigate. And you know, I've been investigating some of them. I come from an animal control background, so I sort of know a little bit about this. And Pam Fahey from the Board of Health and Mary Goodwin, they've also been pitching in with, you know, trying to quarantine dogs that have bitten, and just they're swamped with everything. You know, they have their own set of issues they're trying to deal with. So I don't know if Chris has anything.
Chris.
Yeah, so yeah, just to echo Bill, it was a great opportunity. The regional ACO that we've had for the last position for the last 4 years really allows us to, it really raised our game collectively. We were also able to get a nice grant, which, you know, one of the things that COASA provided was the vehicle. So we got this really nice grant. That's why we have this nice vehicle. And it's been outfitted. And it, you know, again, as Bill said, I think our you know, the needs of the communities kind of diverged a little bit more over time. And you know, so we did communicate with Norwell. They're interested in joining in. They take a quarter of the person. We take the rest, and that would be a combination of, as Bill's explained, animal control and, you know, inspections and all of that. And then there's other needs plugging in as seasonally with the department. So it makes sense. And the agreement that was distributed to all of you was drafted by Council Drentz's office. It's been circulated to Norwell as well. They're interested in going forward. And again, it would be basically they would get roughly 10 hours of time, which they pay for, and we bill like we were doing before with us in Hull. And then we cover the rest. It would be a benefited position. That was something we found was helpful. It attracted a better candidate. I also, you know, realistically, you know, we're probably going to have somebody for, you know, 3 to 5 years. You know, we're not the end game for someone doing this kind of work. But you know, but we'd like to have somebody, and you know, as I think all of you know, Bill started his career as an animal control officer, so he knows this job better than all of us. And he also knows how critically important it is to have the right person doing this, particularly with the animal inspector piece, and also, you know, just dealing with residents. And we've had a really good run here. Things have been very quiet and smooth, and we'd like to continue that. I think this is, I really appreciate the work that Bill and Miriam Johnson, our HR director, have done in coordination with Norwell to move us to this point.
One of the things, and again, the core mission here would be animal control, but you know, I'd like to see this morph towards like the Weymouth model and dabble into some natural resource protection type things. And that's, you know, right now we have illegal dumping that occurs on Cushing Road on water department property. You know, and a police officer really isn't suited, you know, to effectively handle that. It's more of a code enforcement mission. We've also had a ton, you know, since we've cracked down at the DPW, there's been a ton of, literally a ton of building materials and construction materials we're finding dumped on, you know, different places, on driveways along 3A and in different wooded areas. So this is something that, you know, that animal control / natural resource officer could follow up on and actually put some time into. And it's sort of the natural progression. It's where other departments are going. And you sort of get more bang for your buck, as well as, you know, helping us out with our summer load, you know, helping with, you know, if it's natural resources, you know, ticketing at Government Island and things like that, parking tickets, you know, keeping the kids off the bridge, and it's more consistent with that type of role. So we'd like to get as much bang for our buck as we can with this.
Thank you, Chief and Chris. This is interesting. I think a lot of us didn't know about these needs, and it definitely seems like the status quo right now isn't what we need as a town. Diane.
My only question was, what do you need from us tonight?
You have an agreement that was circulated in the packet. If
Yep.
you would vote to authorize that agreement, and then we'll obviously, until Norwell approves it, it's not official. But you're authorizing it. We'll then put it in Norwell's court and allow us to begin the process of recruiting someone. I know there's a candidate or two out in the wind that we're looking at, and that would allow Bill and Miriam in coordination with Norwell to go through the hiring process. And if they're good, and then we'll have an agreement.
So moved.
Second.
All All right, we have a
Did we-
motion and a second. That was fast. All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
Corey,
the agreement in the
any-
packet. I'm in the folder now. Am I just missing it? Are my colleagues, did all my colleagues
I'm
see
looking
it?
for it as well.
Yeah, I don't think it made it to us. And I looked through email too. I mean, the town manager briefed me on this earlier. So I'm familiar with it, but I don't think we got the actual
Oh,
thing.
okay, apologies if that's the case. Then I wouldn't want you to vote on something that's, so I'll tell you what, if I can just get an approval of concept, then we'll make sure that a agreement is in the packet for you in 2 weeks, so you can vote on that, and then we'll circulate back to Noel and say we have a green light from the board to go forward. And so I apologize that didn't get in the packet. So.
I'd like to move we approve the concept of a joint animal control environmental officer with Cohasset and Norwell.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote on this approval of concept.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jeannie Healy Dipple died.
Sorry, Diane Kennedy, aye.
Terry Thompson, aye. Okay. I know I talked about it with you, Chris, too. I thought I saw it in the packet, but I hallucinated that. But we'll come back and get this done
2 weeks.
at our next meeting. Thank you for all that info, Chief. Hopefully this will be a 1-minute agenda item at our next meeting now.
No problem. All right, take care. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. All right. Moving back to our second bullet point on our boards, committees, interviews, appointments agenda item, the school facilities committee interviews. I know that this is another hot button issue that a lot of people in town are excited about and care about. I did want to say that we still have 3 more applicants that we need to interview for this. I know that they were not able to come tonight, and I know that this is getting frustrating for some people in town, but I do think that we will be able to get these done within the next month, 100%. If we can get these interviews scheduled before the next meeting, maybe just a quick, half-hour meeting, I would like to be able to do that if possible. I'll circle back on this over email, but I would like to maybe make our appointments by the 27th if we can get these done for this process. I know that they're eager to get quorum on this committee. I know that obviously with all the things we're talking about with fields and facilities, that facilities keep coming up. I know school committee is very invested in this. So this is something that we really care about, and we've already interviewed a lot. The other thing I wanted to bring up that I was thinking, once we get the interviews done, because we've already interviewed several people, I know a lot of us took notes on this, and I was thinking if we could maybe make this as quantitative as possible, where every member of our board could just send me your top 5 ranking, possibly for all of our applicants, and then I could collate it and see if we could come up with a slate for our 3 appointments based on kind of a vote tally. I do think that there will be some consensus with some of the applicants we've had, but I wanted to let all of you know, I think that if maybe we could sort of vote on this quantitatively, I'm willing to arrange those votes. Jack, you're making a face. Diane, I don't know if you're making a face. I'm just trying to think of the best way to decide on our 3, because this is a good problem to have. We have a lot of very qualified applicants here, right? We have more applicants than normal, where I don't think it's going to be productive to discuss every one of them individually and debate them. I don't want that to get really awkward or become a waste of time for the board. So I'm trying to figure out how we can best streamline getting together a slate or voting on our top 3, just because we have so many. Diane, I saw your hand up first, and then
My hand was up for another thing, which I'll close with, but I agree. I think that's probably this kind of ranked choice voting. I think it's probably the best way to do it. That's one of the things that deter people from applying, is when we sit around and say, Sue is better than Mike, and Mike is better than Larry, and it just makes for an uncomfortable and very cumbersome process.
I agree with that. Jean, and then Corey.
Yeah, Carrie, so long as that comports with our open meeting law requirements, I think that is totally fine. The only sort of additional wrinkle in there is the moderator out there. I don't know, because he has 3 appointments too. And so if he were to make his appointments or at least some of his appointments, then we know who is on or off the list, which could further help narrow. I just don't know his timing on that.
That's fair. No, Jean, I appreciate that. I'll double check on open meeting law. This is not me trying to skirt that. Obviously, I'm just trying to figure out how to be democratic without wasting time or having to get into personal debates about people. I actually think that we're probably going to be ready to appoint before Dan, our moderator. I can double check with him, but based on the conversations I've had with him, I think that we will be first to appoint. So I agree with you, Jean, that would be helpful, but I don't think that's going to help us. I will follow up with Dan about that, though, in terms of timing. Again, if we can have a quick interview with these three, a quick half-hour meeting that we can call, I think we could be ready to appoint by our meeting on the 27th. Corey?
Yeah, I was just a little worried about open meeting law, same thing that Jean said. I mean, I'm just a little bit like, if we all send you three and then there's a little bit of a black box there, it gives me a little squeamish. I mean, I wonder if we could all, in our meeting, if we've got a separate 30, we all have our things, and maybe somebody just does a recommendation, and then we may have to go through it, but we may find just naturally, if someone nominates and then we get some other votes, maybe it's kind of like how we do board organization. I mean, that way it's a little more public. I'm a little worried about just.
No, I know.
Yeah, I think I can answer it.
Go ahead, Diane.
It's absolutely right. We can't do that because of the open meeting law, but what we can do is come to a discussion with our top three that we talk about, or we could send them all to Tracy and Chris and they can collate it, but we can't, because once I tell you who my top three are and Corey tells him, we violated the open meeting law. So yes, that can't happen.
Not if we all send them in.
That's what I was thinking. Actually,
to a staff member, but not to another member of the
Right,
board.
not to each other,
Okay,
but if
but
we all
that's fine.
send our three in there.
Yep.
Again,
that way, and I would say Jean is probably our expert on that.
It can't
Will we
be to
go to
one of
jail?
us. It can't be to another member.
I
know, but she can tell us if we're going to go to jail.
You all got to tell me this if I'm suggesting things that are going to put me in jail. I'm really not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But you'll go. You can go for us.
It could get me out of some meetings.
There's a great Mass Selectmen's Association webinar tomorrow that is on the open meeting law if anybody's available.
Again, and just to clarify for the public, we are not trying to skirt open meeting law. We have, I think, up to 20 applicants for 3 positions here. So we want to respect open meeting law while also not wasting our time and, turning this into personal debate. So let's double check on this. I'll double check on it. But if we could have another staff member take all of our votes and at least share those tallies with us and the public, it might help us. Okay. All right. To be continued on that, unless there are any other points on that. Okay.
No.
So Carrie,
okay,
just really quickly, there has been a lot of conversations over the past number of months with respect to school facilities committee, both in terms of getting it together and also just socializing the conversation among the public. And I know Joe Moschino has been working on it. She spoke with a representative at the Mass School building, noticed that Cohasset was in the process of forming this committee. And there's a lot of things we can be doing as a town right now to start this conversation, including inviting somebody. And I believe Joan followed up and had a similar conversation with Chris. So I encourage that conversation regardless of the committee structure. I mean, we got to move on that. I totally appreciate the need to do that, but there's a whole lot of other things that we can be doing as a community in terms of this, having this discussion out amongst us. So.
Thank you for that point, Diane. You're absolutely right. And we do have a lot of legislative support with this. Joan Moschino and Pat O'Connor have both expressed that they want to help in any way possible. So I think that we are getting all the stakeholders on deck here, but thank you for bringing that up. Okay. Next item, moving on to legal RFQ process. We have Michelle coming in here to discuss this. This should only take a few minutes. We have this scheduled for the 22nd. And she's going to go over what I think is the best proposal for that timing. And then for our next meeting after that, which will not take as long as the one on the 22nd. So hi, Michelle.
Hi.
How are you? Give us a quick update on this. I know you've been working out the scheduling.
Sure. So we did receive this evening all of the questions back from each firm that we sent to them. So I will put that in a shared folder for you all to access tomorrow.
Great.
We scheduled the interviews with all the full service firms for July 22nd. We have the 4:30 slot, the 5:45 slot, and the 7 p.m. slot all filled out. The way I envision the interviews happening is that all full service firms will tell us all about all of their offerings within their hour. So then they don't have to come back another day to present, say, Labor Council or something of that nature. Since they're going to be here, we should just get everything all done at once. We are slating the 28th for right now for Labor Council and Special Council. My recommendation would be to try and get Labor Council in on the 22nd. Since they're only presenting that small component, I think 30 minutes would suffice for that interview. And if we could get them in at 4 p.m. maybe, or on the tail end at 8, not ideal, I understand. However, I think it's a good way to wrap everything up in one evening, excluding special counsel. We were also talking about Zoom versus in person.
Yep.
That's completely up to the board, how you want to handle it.
Okay, so thank you, Michelle. And again, we're trying to get this done in a way that gives enough time for the firms and for us to ask questions and review all of their answers. I know that we discussed last time that I think we'd prefer in person. I would still agree with that if everyone else is okay to doing the 22nd or in person. How do we feel about that in general? Just in person versus Zoom? Do we want these meetings? And again, we can do either are an option. And I know the firms are willing to do either. So I do think we need to decide that. I saw Jean, I saw your hand first, then Corey, then Diane.
I definitely see the benefit of in person for sure. My only question that I have is, there's going to be a lot of boards and committees and commissions that are going to be interested in who we hire. And is it easier for them, particularly if we're starting at 4 o'clock, during the workday? It may be easier for them to participate if it's Zoom. So
valid point, Corey.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jean. And I wonder if we could do hybrid where we're all in a room, but the council's on Zoom. I also think, if we can make it faster, more efficient, we should do that. And it sounds like having, a conference call may be more efficient anyway.
Okay. Diane, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if we can find some way to do hybrid, although I think all of us, if possible, should be in person. I also want to say that I'm starting to commute back into Cambridge. And obviously I'll make exceptions to get to meetings like this, but I would prefer if we were going to tack on labor, and I agree that it should be as much as we can get done in one night is great. I would prefer that it be on the end of the evening as opposed to earlier, but I will be available no matter what.
Okay, Jack.
Oh, I think we need to figure out how to do it hybrid. I don't see why we can't have a little camera in front of us. It's so much easier for the people at home to be able to see us. And I know from experience, when you're trying to watch a select board or any meeting on television, you miss stuff. So, and I don't think that it's hard to do, but that has to be the wave of the future.
Yeah.
And that way people at home can see it, and we have such much greater participation than we used to have, because it's easy to see what's going on. So let's figure out how to do it hybrid.
Okay. And again, we have our first in-person meeting really on Tuesday, the 20th. So yeah, so hopefully that will go well and get us ready for, we get to hang out twice in person next week. Everyone get excited. Okay. All right. So Michelle, let's try to do that where the board is in person this next Thursday, but our law firms can be.
Well, I think we want the law firms here, but I think we want the people to be able to see the benefit of seeing us in person. And if somebody can't make it, we can do it on Zoom. But I don't think we should say, let people not come in. If they can't come in, that's okay. But anyway.
So the only hesitation with that is that we don't want to give special preference to anybody. They either all come in or all need to be on Zoom.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I do like the hybrid option, but I would like it with council in person. But if we're going to do hybrid and only one firm can come in person, the others can't, then it should all go Zoom.
I agree. I think it needs to be equal either way. I mean, in
Mhm.
a way, that's when we're talking about hybrid, we're really just saying if we're going to be in person and the firms are going to be in person, we're really just saying we want greater access for the public to participate.
Yes, exactly.
So
This
that's
is for the public, not for us.
right.
Law firm wants to work for us, they come in in person.
Okay, Diane, how do you feel? Okay, so can we agree to tack on labor, I guess, at the end?
Mhm.
And for just for Diane's schedule for
Mhm.
that? Diane, is that is that better for you?
It is a little bit better, but if it causes anybody else any chaos, I can make it at 4.
Okay, Jean.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to follow up on the hybrid. If we're gonna do it, I think we need to practice it ahead of time, because I've seen some hearings where you have a back and forth and you can't see half of the time if you're coming in from Zoom. And so if we really want the public to have this be accessible, we have to figure out how to make it accessible, including through Zoom or Facebook, because a lot of people don't have cable.
No, I agree, Jean. I'm a little bit worried about this being our first test case. I 100% agree. We're all in agreement about the need for hybrid. I'm a little worried about if we're going to be game time ready by next Thursday, especially because our first in-person meeting is only 2 days before that, which is on Tuesday. So that is my one worry. We very much care about this, and I have a feeling it's going to be one of our goals for next year. I'm a little torn because I don't want this to get wrecked just because we're not prepared. Corey?
Question for Chris. Chris, do we have any update from IT on that new fancy camera?
It might be in next week, but we're not sure. It's scheduled to be in next week. And if it is, that's great. To Gene's point, we do want to test it, make sure it works and we're good. That said, there's alternatives we can theoretically do, including all of you having laptops or something in front of you, so we can be simulcasting on Zoom at the same time as you're live. I will check again with Ron tomorrow, but when I talked to him last week, the expectation would be here about the 3rd week in July.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Diane.
Just some clarification on the hybrid and actually the process of the interview. Are we going to basically each ask one question each? So it's really just broadcasting.
Yes.
Through we're doing what we do every week, because we're not going to be taking public input at that time. We just want to make our in-person meeting with the in-person attorneys be viewable by as many people as possible, in service to external relations, as opposed to the actual management of the meeting. If there was some back and forth between in-person and a Zoom crowd, that would be a whole nother story that I agree we're not ready for. But I think we could pull this off.
And yeah, the plan is that each of us has our one set question, which I'm going to talk to everyone about, because we have to make sure each of these is treated equally. So I was thinking in terms of time, every member would ask one question to each firm.
And Diane would ask the exact same question of each firm.
Yes. So
et cetera.
The question, and it would be the same question. We'd all have
very
our
little
own
follow-up.
question.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. After we read all their responses that they've sent. All right. So Michelle, what do you think? You think that seems doable?
I definitely think it's doable.
Okay. Okay. Let's try to do this, especially because, like you said, people can be watching, but it doesn't need to be as interactive besides us asking our own questions. Yeah, Jean.
So Carrie, you may be able to talk about this, but are you about to talk about a format where the firm has, you know, X amount of like 5 minutes? Okay, I'm not going to steal your thunder if you're
No,
going.
no, no. So when we're thinking about format, first of all, we all have to go, our homework assignment is to go read all the responses to questions. I was thinking in terms of format, because again, we don't have much time, is to, and I would love all your opinions on this, to do let them do some type of opening statement. Right. And then after the opening statement, the 5 of us would ask our questions in an order that we decided. All 5 of us would have our one question. Let them do that, and then a closing statement. I was thinking that was the format in my head. I think that would probably take most of the amount of time, but that was what I had in my head. Jean, I would love your thoughts on that. I would love everyone else's thoughts on the best way to streamline that. Yeah, Diane.
That's how I've been thinking of it as well. My only question is, are the questions we are going to be asking again in public and watching the interplay in the answers and us, are those going to be taken from the questions we've already posed to them to get written responses to?
Yes. That was what we had, I believe, communicated to the firms, that the questions we'd be asking would be based on the ones that we've already asked them.
Right. So our homework specifically is to look at the responses and then to kind of let Michelle know, you know, what we think might be the areas that we want to pursue.
Yep. And again, they need to be the same 5 questions. But yes, so we need to go look at those responses in the next few days to get our questions decided. Jean, what do you think?
Yes, I think I think opening statement 3 minutes. A part of this is a test of how succinct people can be. And
I love that. Love that.
Having done numerous debates recently, I would say 3 minutes is sufficiently long, but 2 minutes is too short. Same with the closing statement. And then on the questions, and I should know this, Carrie, because I know we talked about this in the past, but are we asking a follow-up question based on their response, or are we asking the same question that they just responded to?
Good question about follow-ups.
Okay.
I'm open to follow-ups. I'm not sure. I wanted to get other people's opinions on that. Yeah, Michelle.
The way we posed it to the firms was, you would ask a follow-up question based on the responses that they gave to the questions you've sent them.
Okay.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to verify, just so we're all on the same page. As you know, let's say it's like a liquor license issue, then Corey could have a follow-up that might be in the same world, but slightly different than my follow-up. So we could ask follow-ups off the same initial structured question and response.
And yeah, based on the answers they give in the moment, if we're still unclear about the follow-up question, maybe they're not clarifying it well enough for us. You know what I mean? Like if that maybe is a test for us of whether they can answer those questions succinctly. Okay, so this sounds good for the 22nd. Okay, so 3-minute opening statement. The other answers I think will be, hold on, a little more fluid in terms of time, and then maybe a 3-minute closing statement too. Ish. Okay.
I think if we're short on time, Carrie, we can nix the closing statement, but we could play it by ear.
Okay. All right. So for the 28th, how are people's schedules on that? I have some other work obligations on the 29th. That's why we couldn't have it on the 29th. And I also have a later problem. I might have to give another presentation for another work thing at either 8:30 or 9 p.m. on the 28th. So I guess I'm saying I would prefer a little earlier start on the 28th if we can, but I would like to hear anyone else's schedule. Or I know, because how long do you think we need for this? Because I think these are going to be shorter. Michelle, were we thinking about like a half hour?
The 28th is it's special counsel. It's one firm. So it's 30 minutes. So anytime during the course that you could slate 30 minutes.
Then So anytime for me before 8:30. Diane?
I'm not available after like 3 p.m.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to 8 o'clock performance in Burlington, Vermont.
So, okay. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is there any way we could maybe just start earlier on the 27th and get this half hour done? Would that make people's lives easier?
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Because now that if we've moved labor, I was thinking in my head that we still had labor, but we moved labor to the earlier week. So what if we just did a longer
Power through it all.
7th and power through? Michelle, can you double check if that could work and we can do an earlier start time on the 27th?
Sure.
Okay.
Are these our liquor license council? Is that right, Carrie?
For special?
Yeah, for the 27th that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it not just liquor license, it would be anything that's we need special counsel for. Liquor license is certainly a component of it, but
I mean, are you thinking we need longer, Jean, than a half hour?
So the land use folks, they're going to be on the 22nd, right? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
No, land use would be the 27th. I would say half an hour is too short. I just want to confirm on that.
And
yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, forgive me, but because the term special counsel is somewhat confusing.
Yeah,
because we refer to that as sort of a generic counsel that's handling whatever that's not specific town council. So we have a lot of other special counsels, but in this particular situation, I think we're talking specifically like a lot of licensing and permits, and there's one firm that responded to that who's been doing it for us on these kind of as things come up basis.
Which is like a lot of things like liquor.
He's like our utility player as opposed to special counsel.
But the majority of the work on this with land use is going to be done on the previous week. Okay.
And since land use is such a hot topic, if you give them an hour and then you feel as though you didn't get what you need out of them, then you can do a Zoom follow-up with all the firms again and add some additional time on.
That's
if
true.
If you don't get all the responses that you're looking for.
That's true. And again, based on the questions we asked, I think that it's easy for them to see how important land use is for us. I think that we need to have a law firm that understands that and gets it. And I think that they can read between the lines on the questions we already asked them, that we obviously care about this topic. So they need to show that in their responses. But you're right, Michelle, if we're not satisfied, we can always add more. Okay. All right. So I guess we are good for the scheduling on the 22nd. We're going to try to work out our hybrid model. We get to be in person twice next week. Very exciting. All right. And then I guess this also means that we will be meeting in person on our meeting on the 27th for our board meeting, starting earlier with our special counsel. So, all right. This is exciting. We get to start meeting in person again. I'm excited. Michelle, is that all you need from us? Great. All right. Wonderful. Moving on to our town manager update.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
I'll make it really quick. We're in the final stages of 2 hires. Assistant rec director. The rec program has really exploded. And we've been looking at this. Great candidate is in the final stage. Went through a nice, robust process, including folks from the library and Safe Harbor and rec, obviously, doing interviews. We also had really great interviews last week with finalists for the conservation agent, which included a member of the Conservation Commission. We finally got down to 2, and now we're down to 1. So there's a finalist being vetted now, which had support from everybody, including the conservation members. So hopefully in a week or two, maybe by the time we meet next, I'll have final news on both of those. So productive week on the hiring.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Diane.
Just a quick question, Chris, or clarification, because a lot of people have been asking about operational hires. So the conservation agent is basically a replacement of a person, and the assistant rec position is funded through their revolving fund through, is that correct?
Those are both correct.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, moving on to select board comments. We can do reverse alphabetical order. I'll start this time to spice things up. Reminder, anyone who knows anyone that might be a possible town clerk candidate, it's really important. Please reach out to people. And also please reach out to people to think about running for this position in June. It's really important. It's really critical to our town, and we need as many people as possible to step up and throw their hats into the ring on that. Otherwise, that's all I have. Diane, reverse alphabetical. So Diane next.
Okay, Kay,
Yeah,
I'm not usually second in a reverse.
I know.
Just really quickly on something just to flag, Chris, two things. One is I've had some comments from neighbors in the Margin Street Stockbridge area about, and I know they've been in touch with the police traffic, just that there's a lot of cars speeding around corners, and they asked if we could look into getting a stop sign, which is a whole another series of questions and discussions. But I wonder if maybe you could just check in with the chief and see whether there's any kind of traffic calming measures we could take there. And then another question I had was on, and I may have forgotten this, but I've noticed that there's sort of a big sign in the middle of Wadley Park. It looks like, it has a glass doors to open. Was that a project from an Eagle Scout or?
No, that was actually a project. So we're required by the state now to post certain things by active beaches. And there was never a display case over there at Rocky Beach. So this is the display case at Rocky Beach. It posts like warnings and updates, about swimming and water safety. There is one at Sandy Beach. There's always been one at Sandy Beach. I don't know if there is one at Bassett, to be honest. But I think there may be one on the dock. But one at Rocky. So that's what that is.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Diane. Corey.
I'm next.
Yeah. Reverse alphabetical. I'm confusing people tonight. Oh, wait.
I think.
Sorry. I was doing
you are.
D over E. I was thinking D instead of H. The alphabet's hard. Okay.
Yeah. No,
Go
I'm in
ahead.
the middle of the wheel. Well, first, Chris, I appreciate that the permanent conservation agent process is happening successfully. I think that's great. And so I appreciate your efforts there and that of the Conservation Commission and others who are participating. I think that will be a great sort of fresh start for the town. And also too, and I'm going to follow up with you about this, Chris, I got the same email that Diane got about some traffic measures in terms of a three-way stop possibly at that area. So, for safety purposes, and we'll just have to work through that to see what's feasible and what isn't. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up was, as we continue to think about town hall, I know the renovation / rebuild is hovering out there. And obviously what happened in Miami was absolutely horrible. And we want to make sure that, I think, regardless of where you fall on the town hall debate, we want our employees in a safe building. And so I do think that, and this is something that I'm thinking about, as we think about opportunities for moving people into a safe building in terms of, let's say, a temporary relocation. I'm going to talk more with you about this, Chris, but I do think that, we want to be proactive on that front, to make sure that our employees are in a safe space.
Well said. Corey.
All right. Two things just that on my end that I want the board to kind of also just be aware of, and the town in general, I guess. So our planning director, Lauren Lind, is the vice chair of the South Shore Chamber for the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC. One of the things that they are looking at is doing kind of a last mile study. And, typically you conceptualize these things as getting from like the train station to downtown, and usually kind of more in the confines of commuting. And we don't really quite fit that mold, in structure, but the question, does exist in, could Cohasset use some sort of local transportation? Situate has a little bit of a shuttle loop. and if we did have one, what would it look like? Would it go to different towns? Would it just be shopping? What kind of would the focus be? Because I think there is space for us to have some sort of non-car transport that can really serve our community. But I think the question is, how would that look? So put that all in your minds, and just to something to chew on, because I think that and if you've got great ideas, be sure you can send them to Lauren. And as MAPC is talking about this, maybe we can kind of choose something together that really we can be proud of as a community. The second thing is I try to sit on the the AEC Alternative Energy Commission board, whatever. And a few months ago, they brought to us a proposal where they were going to try to get a lot of solar panels in a lot of different places. And our board said, hey, that's great. There's a lot of funding out there. There's a lot of good opportunities. One huge roadblock that they ran into is that National Grid is trying to require our town to undergo a very expensive upgrade to the one of the substations. And it seems that it was at least the board's impression that the price that they were asking was a little bit, had a couple too many zeros attached. And it really put a huge speed bump in the way of us getting to that goal. So I just want to bring that to the board in general, to something just to keep your ear to the ground on, because for us to really reach our clean energy goals and the stuff that we want to do as a town, we're on the shore. Climate change is real and it's happening, and we need to lead in that fight. And it's disappointing that if we're stopped from that because of something random. So just keep your radar out, and we'll hear more from that hopefully in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. 2 really good points. Jack, you get to be last.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'm not going to go right to adjourn quite yet. I want to really say a big thank you to the members of the boards and the commissions. And I think it's important that we show them respect. And I think it's very helpful when we've had some issues and the whole community, including Chris, got together and we got a new commissioner, or we're in that process of the agent, the conservation agent. But the work that these committees are doing to preserve our town is priceless. And if you see somebody who serves on one of those, please go out of the way and say thank you, because they work hard till 11 o'clock at night. And the difference that they make, if we look around at what a wonderful town Cohasset is, it's because we're standing on the shoulders of those who went before us. So reach out to those commissioners, and they do good work, and just say thank you. And beyond that, I'd like to, motion to adjourn.
All right, we can do that. We've already approved our minutes, so we don't have any other topics anticipated. Do we have a second to Jack's favorite motion?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, starting with Jack.
Great nine.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Healy, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye. Thank you so much, everyone. Good meeting. We
Good
get to see each other in person on Tuesday.
Can't
Get your food orders in for the Tuesday meeting.
Yeah. All right. See everyone later. Thank you.
Bye.